Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Henry's Every Angle podcast. As promised, I did upgrade my sound system. If you like it, leave a comment below. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, share, and thank you for the support. Now I'm going to let my guest introduce himself.
How's it going, everybody? My name is Joshua Ortiz. I am no longer active duty Marine. I did 10 years in the Marine Corps infantry, born and raised in Hoboken, New Jersey. If nobody knows where that is, if you've ever seen Cake Boss, the show Cake Boss, that's my hometown. And so I lived there from 1986 when I was born till I turned 19. Moved to Pennsylvania, lived there for a few years, moved to North Carolina after I joined the military, told no one till after I signed the paperwork. Yeah, didn't tell anybody. I didn't want anybody's opinion, anybody's output on anything. Moved down to Jacksonville, North Carolina, Camp Lejeune. I was there from 2010 to 2019. Did 3 deployments. I was an infantry mortarman. I'm a father of 2. I have a 12-year-old daughter, 10-year-old son. Got out in August, moved up to West Virginia knowing one person. This was kind of the halfway mark between my family in New Jersey and my children that are in North Carolina still to this day. And I've been here ever since, bought a house, and now I'm stuck. So I'm a gym enthusiast. I like to bake. I do gardening when the weather's nice. I actually am one of the few people that enjoys the cold weather. Like, you'll find me outside in the snow. Yeah, people think I'm nuts. Like, you don't like the cold weather. I was like, yeah, I've spent enough time in hot weather to appreciate the cold weather. Um, and yeah, I'm just here now. I've got 2 side businesses that I'm hoping will blow up into a full-blown entrepreneur lifestyle. I'm working towards that right now. And yeah, it's been a long journey for me to get to where I was born and raised to where I'm sitting here today. So I'm excited to kind of get started on that and shed some light on a few things that have led me to where I'm at today.
Sweet, man. No, I appreciate it, and I appreciate your time coming on the show. I want to do a disclaimer real quick. Today we're going to be a little darker, a little deeper. We're going to be talking about on the lines of why so many people are committing suicide. This is a major topic. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this the most. And luckily, Josh was willing to come on the show and put his 2 cents into it. I'm going to start out by asking a question. I do not know a single veteran that has more friends who have died on the lines of duty over having friends who have taken their own life. What is the reasoning behind this, and how can we change it?
So honestly, I think 'cause I've lost many many friends and just people that I've known through my military career that have taken their own life due to the stresses of the job, whether that be seeing your friends die in combat and having to bring that heavy burden back home with you. You know, getting back home after a deployment and dealing with the stuff that either you didn't know was happening while you were gone, stuff that life has changed. A lot of things that shocked the service member, and it shocked me while I was deployed, was we forget sometimes that life goes on back home. There's such a gap sometimes in communication. Like in my first deployment was an Afghan deployment, and I would go, 6 weeks, 2 months without talking to anyone back home. So I don't know anything that was going on. And when you get that phone call back, you're excited to talk to them, not realizing that life has lifed them while you were gone.
Right.
So coming back home and realizing, oh, this isn't the life I left 9 months ago or however long you were gone. Now you're kind of getting the debrief of everything that's happened on this side of the house. And we've got those service members whose relationships had fallen by the wayside during the deployment, or they find out when they get back home. Um, you've got family that doesn't know now how to adjust to their new service member coming home. We go back home, we see our families, and everybody's like, oh, the family sees something different. You're not the same, you know, 19-year-old kid that left for boot camp. I went into the military a little bit older. I was 23. I went to college, got my associates, and then found myself in the same situations I was in coming out of high school. So I said, while I still can physically, and, I haven't been locked up, I didn't go to jail, I've never been locked up, but, I was in that environment. I wanted to join the military right out of high school, but made a few promises. First, kept that end of my bargain, and I wanted to do it for me. It was no longer for anybody else, it was just for me. And I knew that my first deployment was going to be a combat deployment. So it was just one of those things that it's a shock for everybody when you come back from a deployment, or when you just come back from, basic training, boot camp, whatever you go to. You realize how different the military group of people you've created such a strong bonding connection with, and that relationship is from the people that are home, that are still doing the same thing that they were doing when you left them, a year ago, 2 years ago. I've got buddies back home that are still in the same circumstances they were in when I left for boot camp in 2009. To this day, I think I went back home a couple of months ago, and it's literally, the phrase is correct, same shit, different day. And that's a lot for people to deal with. They realize that they have to cut these ties, and sometimes they're just not ready for it. And having to deal with all that and these drastic changes in life, some people just can't. They can't see how they're going to get out of it. There's a lot of things that are available to them, but they've got blinders on, so they don't really have that support system sometimes. Whether that be in the military, they're too busy doing the military thing. And back home, they don't want to burden their family with all this that they're dealing with, because they're like, oh, they're not going to understand me. They're not going to understand what I'm going through. They don't know me. And then you go to the military side, it's like, oh, I don't want, my chain of command, or, my brothers, my sisters in arms to see me as someone who's weak. So they don't know where to turn to.
Right. Yeah, no, I was just pointing there to get you to be just a little closer to the microphone. Yep. Yeah, it's one of those things where even if they don't change, because their environment doesn't change, yours does. Mm-hmm. You become a different person. It's like when I left my family when I was 19, came back when I think I was like 26. Like, I visited them here and there, but like that was all joy time. It wasn't joy, relax, and now here's just life.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where you both have to recognize that they didn't leave. You left. Mm-hmm. And in their mind, you might still be that 18-year-old boy in their eyes. And you just feel so misunderstood at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those, like, even now, I've been out since 2019, and I go visit my mom, who's now moved to Florida, closer to my brother. More of my family's gone that way. And I can only be there for so long. They get the sensible Josh for, like 4 or 5 days. And after all, I was like, I got to go. I've drained my family battery, so to speak, and I got to go recharge back at the house. And in the beginning, that was hard for them to understand. They're like, oh, but we're your family. Like, what do you mean you got to go, separate yourself from your family? And it's just one of those, I'm not this. And I had to have a sit down with, my mom and my uncles. I was like, I'm not the same person that, left for boot camp and all this, even though I'm not even in the military anymore. It's still different, because that has changed me both, who I am mentally and physically, and things that I appreciate and things that I value. Yes, I value my family. I love my family to death. It's just, I see things differently now. I appreciate things differently. Listening to, members of my family or close friends that I've known since childhood talk about certain things and complain, and I'm like, there's so much more that is worth complaining about. What you're talking about is, small potatoes. To a point, it sometimes annoys me, where I'm just like, man, I gotta go. I gotta get out before I start hurting feelings. Yeah. I gotta go.
Yeah, it's hard, because I mean, especially going through a whole bunch of different lifestyle changes, like, it gets to the point where, like, big problems are the normal problems. Like, once upon a time, them little problems could have meant the entire world to you. Yep. And it just got to the point where that didn't mean shit.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to try to have that conversation because at that point, not only do you feel alone, you're completely lonely at that point because to them it's all big. To you ain't shit.
Yeah.
And you don't feel understood. And you start to come off as you don't have any sensitivity. You're just nothing more than a dick. You don't care about anything. You don't feel for anyone's feelings.
You're cold. Yeah, I
Yeah.
got that a bunch of times.
I was called serious. And I'm still to this day called serious all the time. And it's not a matter of being serious. It's you just change.
Yeah.
Shit makes you change. And it could make you slow down too. I know that's what happened to me. I used to be go, 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 go. And now it's like you lost the energy for all that. And you lost the energy to put any kind of emotional care into them small problems.
Yeah, because you've come to realize over that time of however long the individual's been in the service or separated from the family, whatever, that there is real important matters, and you're just like, it's kind of hard to explain to someone how a minor problem for someone who's been in legitimate life or death situations where those are the real issues. Like, and I look at people, I'm like, no one's dying. Like, it's not as big as you think it is. No one's dying. No one's threatening your life. It ain't that big of a deal. And if you tell someone who doesn't fully understand that it's not that big of a deal, they're going to lose it. Because to them, like you said, it is a big deal. To them, it's the world. But to you, it's like, dude, so what if you broke a fucking heel? If you can't find your keys or you're going to be late for work, yeah, it sucks, but there's so much more to handle. There's a lot more problems out there. And if someone hasn't been exposed to that or they're not sensitive to that, you just look like the jerk. You're inconsiderate. You're not taking me serious. This is a big deal. And it's like, no, I take you serious. I understand to you it's a big deal, but it's not as big of a deal to me. Not that I don't care. I'm just not going to give it the same emotional connection as you're going to give. And to that other person, it kind of shows like you don't give a damn. You don't care. So for a lot of people, it's hard for them to grasp, and that's why so many, like you said, so many service members feel completely alone, even in a house full of people.
Yeah, because you're not understood.
Yeah.
Now that I was actually going to wrap it right back to that. How difficult do you think it is for people once they get out of the military to be able to find people that understand them? And do you think that's also part of the reason why suicide often occurs?
I think it's very difficult for people that once they get out, unless they've done their due diligence ahead of time, I think the worst thing a service member can do once they get out is go back home. Because then you surround yourself with the people who don't understand you for the most part. Like, that's why I moved to West Virginia. I knew one person. I had a job already set up, and I knew one person. I lived in a camper for 3 months. It would have been longer, but I had my son and his mother. I moved them up here to try and reconcile those differences, which didn't work out, and we can get into that later. But the reason I wanted to come up here is because I wanted to start over, because I knew if I went back home, it wasn't going to work, and I could not stay where I was at, where I was stationed at, in a civilian aspect. That would have been, I wouldn't be sitting here. I can say that with 100% conviction that I would not be sitting here today if I stayed there. And I think that's, the majority of the time, that's the worst thing a person can do, is go from a military career to go back home to go live with their parents. Because the majority of them, they do their 4-year contract if they're active duty, and they go back home. Now, if you go back home, you go to school, and you've got a plan set up, you're setting yourself up for success. But if you're going back home and you don't know what you want to do, that's where we see a lot of those instances where, sadly, they turn to drugs, alcohol, other vices, what have you, and they find themselves in trouble and they don't know how to get out of that situation. And I think that is the biggest issue that we've got, is the system is failing our veterans even before they get out. So you got the system called SEPs and TAPS, your separation program before you get out, where they're supposed to transition you, air quotes, back into civilian life. But all they're doing there on paper is they're checking boxes to cover their own ass, to say, yeah, well, he went through this program, he did these classes, we taught him how to make a resume. We taught him, financial management. It's been the same financial management class since I was a Lance Corporal in 2010. Same financial management class, but I didn't learn anything from then. Luckily, I was a little bit older, so I went in knowing more about my finances. But you get these kids that come out of high school. Some of them never had a job. They join the military. Now the military gives them money, gives them a check on the 1st and the 15th. They give them housing. You live at the barracks. They give you food. You get a chow hall card, so the kid doesn't have to worry about managing his finances for paying rent. He pays a car note, which is way too expensive to begin with because, you get something with a 20% interest rate, something ridiculous like that, and a cell phone. Only 2 responsibilities that kid has. Pay his phone, pay his car, and his insurance. But now you send him back in the civilian world. He's living with his parents now. He's got to pay for food. He's got to get a job, and then he realizes, oh, this is what real life is. And we don't set them up for success on the way to transition out of there. Biggest issue also, which we kind of touched on before we even started, was the chain of command. Once they catch wind that a certain service member is no longer going to stay within active duty service, it's kind of like, all right, kid, you're not helping grease this machine. You're a part that we're going to swap out. So, it's always one of those, oh, we've got this open door policy. No, the fuck you don't. You don't. There are some, though. I'm not going to say all, but I've noticed a few, higher ups, more enlisted than officer, but there are some pretty legit officers that will help. I was lucky enough to have a few of those, but then I did see a lot of the individuals in my chain of command not turn their back, but kind of ignore. I'd be like, hey, I need to go here. Where is this? How can I sign up for this? What about this program? And it was always, oh, talk to your platoon sergeant. Well, he's not here. Who do I talk to? Luckily, I had connections with people who were civilian contractors who could point me in the right direction. But a lot of these kids don't have it. So we're not setting them up for success once they decide to take that transition back into the civilian sector. And then we wonder why we're losing so many daily.
Yeah, and I hate to say it. I'll throw it right out there, but it's not like the VA's too much help. I got holy shit lucky with my first VA provider because I was like her third client. Like
Okay.
the VA didn't disrupt her brain.
Yeah, you still got her while she was fresh.
Yeah. So she's still my provider to this day for like the next 3 weeks, and I meet my new one. But
do you have any idea who your new one is? Name?
Not yet. It's
Okay.
over at the Martinsburg.
If you get a guy, his name's Mark Kukazella. He's my provider. He's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was the exact opposite of you when I got to the VA. I got one who, I'm not going to drop a name, even though she is now retired. I'm not going to drop a name because I can't remember her damn name. She was a script writer. That's all she was worried about. I went in there, and she was like, oh, based on your medical record that I see, you suffer from this, that. I was like, yes. And she didn't ask me how I was feeling. I can't recall if she ever asked me how I was feeling, how I'm doing, how's my family, how's this, how's that. She was like, oh, have you been taking your medication? Yes. Okay, I'll give you more. And I had a list of medications, I want to say about 8 or 10 different medications with everything from acid reflux to headaches to, I couldn't even tell you, vitamin D and all kinds of stuff. And that's all she was concerned about. And then, I would ask her questions, and she either would not give me a straight answer, or she would say, oh, you don't need that. We don't need that. You don't need that. You just keep taking these medications. And I was like, you know what? That's not it. And then she retired, and I got this doctor here that I'm with now, Dr. Mark, and first thing he did, he looked at all these. He goes, that's a lot of prescriptions. I was like, yeah. And then ran blood work. And he's like, well, how long have you been pre-diabetic? And I was like, for about 30 seconds, because I never knew. No one ever in my life told me I was pre-diabetic. Now, it runs in my family. My dad has it. He's lost 2 brothers to it. So I knew it was something in my system. I was just never told. And he's like, well, you're not, off the deep end. He goes, but, you can get there. But what we can do is do these minor changes to your lifestyle, diet, and all that. And he's like, and with all that, we can get you off of, a couple of these prescriptions that you're not going to need. There's no reason for you to, he goes, you're a fairly healthy individual. I still would work out. I still would run. But, I was foggy headed. A lot of times I would just sit and, I'm not saying sulk, but I would just sit in the house, and next thing I know, like 2 hours went by and I hadn't moved, and I was just like, what the hell just happened? Just one of those like mellowed out in a fog, not knowing what's going on. I'd go to work, come home, sit down. Next thing I know, 2 hours went by, and I'm like, what the hell? And it was due to a lot of things of just my mood, a lot of stuff I was eating, all inflammation in my body was starting to affect my cognition and all that stuff. And the medication wasn't doing shit for it.
I was going to ask, was one of the medications they gave you antidepressants?
No, I was never put on an antidepressant. They wanted to put me on an antidepressant, and I declined it because I'd seen so many, horrors of people I know and heard stories of people on antidepressants that, oddly enough, a side effect is suicidal tendencies.
Yeah.
It's like, how are you going to give somebody an antidepressant that could cause them to want to take their own life? It makes no sense. So I was like, you know what? I didn't feel like I needed it at the time. I didn't make the best choices to substitute an antidepressant. I turned to alcohol. Alcohol was my thing, not raging alcoholism, but, if you were looking for me anywhere Friday after 5 p.m. to Sunday before 8 a.m., if the weather was nice, you saw a screaming blue motorcycle with a maniac on it, just, bar hopping. So I substituted the possibility of prescription drugs, antidepressants, for, alcohol and adrenaline. And that was a lot of what I did, because I had said first I had moved my son and his mother up here in November of 19. We tried to reconcile. That lasted all of 6 months. It didn't work. She wound up, beating feet back down south. Took my son with her, but at that point it was one of those, listen, this isn't going to turn out well for either one of us if you stay. But so now I'm up here alone again. Had my son taken out of my house for the second time. When my daughter and her mother, when we were in a relationship, that lasted, well, we were married in 2010. We got divorced in 13, something like that. And my daughter was still very young when the separation happened. I was from my second deployment. Things were sounding fishy on my second deployment. Got a few emails from some buddies back stateside saying, hey, we're seeing things that don't look like they're adding up in your favor. Some of which I addressed to her, but I was floating around on a Navy ship, so my communication wasn't exactly the best. Emails weren't getting responded. Phone calls were brief because there's a line, like a prison line worth of dudes waiting to use a payphone. Half the dudes there don't even know how to operate a payphone because they're like 18 years old. So I came home from that deployment. We lived on base housing. My daughter was there. It was a full house. Everything was furnished. That house was left in the same condition it was when I left. When I had went for the deployment, we were still together. High hopes, smiles, hugs, and kisses. Halfway through the deployment, flipped. Accusations were thrown out there. The emails were coming in. And then I'd say about a week after I got back from deployment, the house was empty. I still lived in the house, though. So all my belongings went from a 2-bedroom house on base to that was fully furnished. Everything was in there, to Josh is living out of the guest room with a couple of pots and pans and like one cup. And I lived there for 2 months. So I went from a house that had pictures of my family and my daughter to me in a room, basically sleeping on a reclining couch, which is not the most comfortable thing because there's steel frame in there. So you can't really lay across because you've got this cross beam in your back. And that was my first real bout with depression hit. The realization of, I had been with this woman up until that point for 8 years. We dated for 5. We were married for 3. And then we made it through the Afghan deployment. We made it through a combat deployment. My daughter wasn't born yet. So I thought, man, if we can make it through a combat deployment, we can do anything. Not the case. So we went through the second workup, second deployment, come back home, and it was literally, I remember I was at work. I was on base, and I got the call. She's like, all right, I'm packing up the stuff. We had spoken about it beforehand, so it wasn't completely blindsided, but reality didn't check in until that conversation when I got home and the house was empty. The car that was in the driveway wasn't in the driveway. Living room was it looked like a show house. There was nothing there. It was just empty, waiting for someone to move in. And I remember one Saturday or one weekend, I'm sweeping out the garage, and all of a sudden the sound of the bristles on the garage floor were deafening. And I stopped. I looked around. I was like, what the fuck? And I kept sweeping. It was like leaves and shit in the garage. And I had to stop because I couldn't think straight. I couldn't breathe. Heart was like 100 miles an hour. And I'm like, what is going on? I was like, am I about to have a fucking heart attack? I'm 25 or 26 at the time. So I put the broom down, went inside, sat down. My stupid ass cracks a beer. So I got a beer, and I was like, all right, cool. Had one led to 2, 2 led to 3, and I was like, all right, I'm feeling better. And completely dismissed it. And then luckily a buddy of mine calls me later on that evening. He's like, hey, dude, what's up? What are you doing? I was like, I'm just at the house, I'm staring at the fucking wall. He's like, well, come over. We're going to go frog gigging. He's from Florida. I'm from Jersey. I didn't even know what the hell he just told me. So we get out there and, we spend the night. We get the truck stuck. We got to walk back 5 miles back to the house to get the key because somehow he lost the key as we were out getting the frogs. So the truck got stuck in the sand. We went back. Alcohol was involved. We lost the key. There was a whole bunch of stuff we had to get back. And the whole night turned to a disaster. But it was a good disaster. It's one of those stories, you tell around the fire and stuff like that. We still joke about it. But then I got back home. And I got back into the empty house. And then reality set in again. And I was like, oh, what am I going to do? What's Josh going to do now? This is not how I envisioned myself. Beer turned to Jack Daniels. Me and Jack had a pretty good understanding of each other back then. And then the dark thoughts started coming in. You're a failure. You failed your marriage. You probably could have worked through this. Your daughter's going to be raised by, some other guy. Yeah, you'll be there, but he's going to be living there. And then just more drinking. And with the span of a week, I remember at one point I'm sitting on a couch, the TV's on, but I can hear the sound, but I can't make what's being played on the TV because I've had that much. And I'm staring at my shotgun that's just leaned up against the wall because I had nowhere to put it. I'm just staring at it, and then the thoughts come in. It's like, dude, you're SGLI. You're worth $500,000. That'll go to her.
If people don't know, SGLI is life insurance for the military.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm like, I signed the paperwork. I know exactly who's going to get this life insurance policy. But if I'm not mistaken, it doesn't cover suicide. So a lot of the people that are out there thinking, they're better off without me. I'm worth more dead than I am alive. Not if you're the one that takes your life. I don't think, and somebody might want to fact check me on that, but I don't think it pertains to suicide. So you'll do that, and they're not going to get jack shit. But yeah, and I remember I had the shotgun in my hand, Mossberg 500 Tactical Black. And it was, oddly enough, it was a Christmas gift from my daughter's mother back in 2010. So and I looked at it. It was loaded. And I looked at it. I never looked down the barrel. Just the thoughts that came into my mind was like, so it'd be so much easier. I won't have to worry about this. I won't have to go through the ridicule of being, another military statistic, another, oh, there's another, Hispanic dad, divorced, because I am Puerto Rican. My daughter's mother is not, but statistically, we don't bode too well in broken homes. So I was like, I don't want my daughter living that way. But I was like, you know what? I don't know how much time went by with me with that gun in my hand. But at a certain point, I was like, nah, that ain't it. So put it up. And then it kicked down. I was like, what the fuck was I just doing? I'd never thought about that in my life. Like, what am I doing? I can do better. I won't be. Now I would have just added another statistic. Would have been the military service member who took his life. So I just went on back to business. Never really addressed anything, just kind of buried it. And it would rear its head up again a couple years later. And yeah, it's just one of those, I had a few buddies that I deployed with that, would check up on me. But for the most part, I didn't say anything. I didn't want that stigma to follow me. I was the motivator. I was the one that people hated. I was like, oh, there goes Corporal Ortiz again. Now I got to get my shit straight, because if I don't have my shit straight, he's going to straighten it for me. And then I went full bore into my job. And that's what I use now as another substitute to help cope with my personal issues that were going on. I just went full into my work, which work loved it. Work was about it. Personal life, not so much. It made me cold. Even for me to say that, it made me cold to family. It made me cold to people who were not military affiliated, who wouldn't understand that lifestyle. I'm like, I'm not talking to you. Unless you were a stripper or a tattoo artist, I wasn't talking to you. And me and the boys would just go out and run wild on the weekends. But that didn't help. That didn't make things any better. Then I met my son's mother, and she wound up getting pregnant. Wasn't in the plans. She was actually going to join the Army. She found out is it Oklahoma you guys go to, I think?
Fort Sill?
Yep. She went out to Fort Sill. They did the standard entry medical stuff, and they were supposed to push her out to the platoon, and they held her back. She was pregnant. She didn't know. So I get the phone call, and she's like, hey, I'm coming back home. I was like, everything all right? What happened? She goes, I'm pregnant. I was like, what? I was like, you've got to be shitting me. So I was still legally married. Though I was separated, I was still legally married. And in the military, that's a no-no. You can't have a kid from somebody else while you're still married. The fidelity thing. The rule has since changed in regards to timelines and stuff. Like, you can be legally separated, that I'm aware of. But
Did they try to UCMJ you?
no, we did some backdoor finagling of paperwork that all parties agreed to. I had to lie my ass off to not the military, to civilians, but on paper, everything was copacetic. The timelines all matched. Like, we backdated. We went from separation date of my daughter's mom being in the middle of my deployment, so that 1 year in North Carolina, you have to be legally separated for a year before you can get divorced. So we just backdated the shit out of it to meet that timeline. So it couldn't be me getting her pregnant while still technically married.
Right.
So they couldn't, unless somebody was saying, like a canary, and was like, no, he's full of shit.
Yeah, some kind of whistleblower.
Yeah, some kind of whistleblower, but, my kids are 12. If they want to blow the whistle now, they can blow something else, not the whistle, though. They can kiss my ass. But, so yeah, we wound up, that was all right. And then, you know what? I'm like, you know what? I took it as, here's my chance to do it right this time. It wasn't planned, but, I proposed. I told her I was going to, do right by her. We wound up getting married. She was pregnant in the wedding photos and all that stuff. And we moved in together. The son was born. Luckily, my command gave me orders to a non-deployable unit. So I was able to be stateside for just over 2 years for my son being born. So that was cool. It was rocky, to say the least, because not only did we have our relationship problems, but in her family, there were problems that people were dealing with that were affecting her also. So the stress of me still not addressing the issues that I had with my mental health, now I'm worrying about her mental health and the issues going on with her more so than me.
Can I throw something into this?
Yeah.
And then throw this in there. As a man, you're always going to put your problems on the back burner.
Oh, 100%.
And you're going to deal with their shit.
Yep.
And, I mean, typically, someone might hate me for saying this, but, like, 9 times out of 10, when a relationship gets together, the man's like, oh, shit. This is what's in front of me. Okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And you're going to deal with anything that's in front of you, even if it mentally affects you. But again, like you said, you're going to bottle it up, put it down. Yeah. But you're also not seeing anything from her point of view.
Exactly. Like, especially a military male. You know, we've got that. Most of us have that alpha mentality of we can take on any problem. We can solve any problem. You know, our personal stuff, if it affects our family and our loved ones, our personal stuff doesn't matter. We'll set that aside and deal with it later. And, you know, certain circumstances with things that need to be addressed immediately, yeah, but then that doesn't bode too well.
No.
You know, as a man, we are seen as the protector of the house and of the family. And, you know, our own stuff, we'll deal with it later if we even decide to deal with it.
Yeah, you're more likely to deal with what's physically in front of you and not deal with anything that's mentally or emotionally going on.
Exactly. And the issue with that is we'll put our stuff so far on the back burner that we forget about it. And it doesn't go away. It's just biding its time for something to happen, and then it'll pop up again. And it always pops up at the worst time. It's like your car. When you've got money, there's nothing wrong with your car. The second you're running low on funds, some fucking sensor light pops up, and your car's like, oh, you're broke? Cool. Check engine. And I feel like that's life. Life's like, you're doing good? All right, if you're doing good, cool, I'm not going to bother you. As soon as you got something going on, check life light pops up. And then, you know, you've been running that, you know, I'm going to deal with everything in front of me. So now you've taken on that role, and everybody expects that of you. And you know everyone expects that of you. Like, oh, don't worry about it. You know, Josh got it. He's going to handle it. Who's got Josh? No one thinks about that because it's not directly affecting that. Even I don't think about that. You know, I got me. Hey, man, how you doing? What's the one thing every military service member says? I'm good. The fuck you are. Only a select few of your close friends will look you in your face like, hey, man, what's up? How you doing? I'm good. Bullshit. I've had that conversation with friends, and they've had that conversation with me over the phone, not even looking at me eye to eye. They can tell when something's off. You know, my same buddy that called me to go frog gigging, we have stayed in constant communication. I called him yesterday? This morning. Spoke to him this morning. Shout out Bub Halsey out in Florida. Called him this morning. And I was like, hey, dude, you know, gave him a heads up. I was coming on the podcast. I'm like, you cool with me, you know, telling some stories? He goes, yeah, just don't make me look like an asshole. I said, that's going to be hard, man. Like, we came in together, the Afghan deployment. We went on the MEU. We were Libo buddies when we went to port, which that was a disaster to have us both be Liberty buddies because you had to go in groups of 2 at a minimum. So, like, we'd get off from port, and he's like, where you want to go? And the first thing we do, find a bar. We found so many literal hole-in-the-wall bars to the point where we'd make friends with the manager and drink for free. One bar we went to in Cyprus, literally to get into it, you had to climb through a hole in the wall. So we just called it the Hole. And, you know, started telling the boys, and not to go down a rabbit hole, but it's just like one of those things where that's the memories we were making. The owner's name was George. I don't even know if George is still alive out there in Cyprus, but he would just make us drinks and see what we thought about it. We'd take some, hey, George is good. He'd make another. I'm like, George, this tastes like shit. He's like, yeah, a lot of people tell me that. So why are you giving me this then? Like, if you know it tastes like shit. But yeah, he's one of those friends that we've stayed in constant communication. I was at his wedding back in May. I think it was early May. He had a wedding down in Florida. We went there, and it was cool because some of the old boys were there from the unit. I haven't seen them in over a decade. To see them, I was like, it was cool, and it was like nothing happened. We just went there, hung out by the pool, had a good time, told some stories, bullshitted. But he's the one that I stayed in communication. He doesn't know how important he was in making sure that I stayed vertical. Just from simply just talking. I had a situation this past in May. May was a rough month this year. Last year, 2024. I was in Jersey, getting ready to go to another friend's wedding, and I was checking on a family friend and spoke to him on the phone. He's not in the best situation. He's got his own demons and vices that he deals with. But I called him. I happened to be at breakfast with my dad that day. I was like, hey, man, how are you? I was just talking to Mom. She said for me to give you a call. Do you need anything before I head back to West Virginia? He's like, I'm about to go grocery shopping. I said, well, wait. I'm finishing up here with my dad. I'll take you. That way you don't have to walk. You throw your stuff in the truck, get everything you need. He's like, yeah, cool, no problem. This was probably 11 o'clock a.m. So I'm done breakfast with my dad, go back. I'm like, call my mom and say, hey, I'm going to go take so-and-so to go grocery shopping, and then I'm going to go home. Okay, no problem. I call him, no answer. Call him again, no answer. Call back and say, hey, he's not answering. She goes, oh, well, there's a spare key. I'll tell you where it's at. So I get the spare from someone else in the building, and I go to his door. And from the elevator, I can hear thumping music. Now, this building is not a building where young people live. So I'm like, what the hell? And it's like blasting hip-hop music, like 90s hip-hop music, loud, something obnoxious. And it's coming from his door. I'm like, oh, shit, maybe he's in the shower. So I'm like banging on the door. I'm like, yo, nothing. Call my mom, say, hey, he's not answering. You got the key? Yeah. It's like, I'm going in. I know his history. I was like, this might not be pretty because I'm banging on the door like with my foot, donkey kicking the door. I can't hear the shower. So my mom's like, leave me on the phone. Put me on speaker. So I open up the door, crack the door open, and I'm calling his name. At this point, I know the shower's not on. Open up the door, and I can see his legs sticking out from behind a coffee table by the window. So I said, Mom, he's out. He's fallen out. I unplugged the radio because I couldn't find a button to turn it off, so I just yanked the whole thing out. And she's like, is he dead? I said, I don't know, but I could see him breathing. I said, nope, he's not dead. I said, I'm going to have to call you back because now I've got to call
911.
911. So what it looks like, he just slumped back and fell. So I don't know. He's had a history of like high blood pressure and stuff like that. So I don't know if he passed out. So I'm like there and I'm shaking him. But then I start seeing things near him, certain paraphernalia. And I'm like, you motherfucker. You told me this was over. And I'm like, all right, well, push that aside. I got to make sure he's not going to die here. So, I lay him flat, do that whole recovery position, roll him on his side, try to get him to respond. I shake him. I'm calling his name, nothing. And I smack him. Maybe I shouldn't have done it. But then I got another one in for good measure. That one was for me, for anger. And it was like if I just smacked the wall, there was no give, no response, nothing. It was just the snoring of, I'm like, all right, well, he's breathing. But so that I had to deal with that. And then after all that subsided, I called Halsey, called my buddy Bob. I'm like, hey, man, explain the situation because he's the only one that'll give it to me straight. I said, I'm not feeling too hot about how I responded about that. He's like, why? What happened? I was like, I didn't care. As I called the ambulance and I waited for the ambulance to arrive, I know he's alive. He's breathing. I said, I sat on the couch directly across from him. And I looked at him the same way that I look at my dog sleeping. Like it didn't trigger an emotion. I was just looking at him like, there's nothing I could fucking do now. Like, I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was, I guess, upset, hurt, because I was just on the phone with him.
Right.
And he's like, dude, he goes, best case scenario was you open that door. He's like, who else would have found him? No one really checks on him. You know, a couple of days would went by before anybody realizes he's like incommunicado. No one knows what's going on. At that point, they would have found him by smell.
Yeah.
If you know what I'm saying. And the next person that anyone would have contacted to check on him would have been my 84-year-old grandmother.
That's the last thing you want.
She would have went to the hospital. She would have went down. You know, and that's not something the family would have been ready to deal with.
Yeah.
You know, because she lives by herself. My grandfather passed away in 2010. And they were like, and I asked him, I said, well, why didn't I have a response? Like, why wasn't I riled up? He's like, dude, we're just built that way, man. He's like, we've seen all kinds of shit. You know, we're just built that way. He goes, the best thing to happen was for you to open that door. He goes, you knew exactly how to address that situation. Everything was cool, calm, and collective. You made sure he wasn't dead, first and foremost. He's like, and then you just did what you can do until it was out of your power. And then, you know, proper authorities came in and handled it, and they brought him back. They revived him. They took him to the hospital. He's like, it's who we are now. He's like, it's the government paid us, but they also got paid. You know, we sold a bit of ourselves for us to ensure that our job would be successful. You know, especially when we were in country. You know, I was infantry. We were walking. We were gunfights. Shit was blowing up. And he's like, that's just who we are now. He goes, the world needs people who don't freak out. But, you know, we carry that burden. We pay that price walking around every day, being able to be that way. So, you know, I know I just rambled on for a minute, but
No, dude, you're good.
To bring it full circle, you know, we need friends who understand us, that are like us. Because if we don't have that group that fully understands what it is to be that type of individual, you know, I'm not saying, you know, I'm not here to be like, oh, you know, infantry, hoorah, gung-ho. No, military as a whole, you know, you never send a military person back in the civilian sector the same way. It doesn't matter if you were in the infantry, if you were, you know, special forces, or if you were admin. Being in that military environment alone, the way it's designed is stressful. It doesn't matter what your specific job is in the military. The military as a whole is a stressful job. And like we had said earlier, stress will kill you. You know, if you don't have that group, that stress will kill you, whether it's trying to make deadlines or trying not to die.
Yeah, either trying not. I mean, it goes in multiple ways, especially throughout a psychology major. Yes, like one, suicide, very heavy.
Mm-hmm.
But two, even talking to you and hearing you right now and hearing how you handle that, like you are great under the pressure, which I completely understand. I'm in the same boat. But the problem is having that exact same mindset does lead to cardiovascular disease. It leads to Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
It leads to every single, that's considered health psychology. Side 200, I think, or something like that.
Mm.
But it's one of those things where military doesn't teach you how to handle that. The VA, they're going to deny everything and try to not help you. And I've always said this, the number one thing you could do for the VA is to kill yourself, and they'll be happy about it.
They don't got to pay you no more.
Yeah. Funeral's cheaper.
Oh, yeah. Funeral's a one-time payment.
Yeah.
You know? Funeral's a one-time payment, and then, you know, people... I'm going to catch shit for this, especially what I'm about to say. So I am a member of the VFW, you know, lifetime member. And for all it's worth, the VFW as an establishment of getting veterans together is awesome. You know, you got the old heads in there. About 2 years ago, we did the Marine Corps birthday at the VFW in Charlestown. And I was 36 years old, and I was the youngest Marine present. And the oldest Marine was like 90-something. So this is the first time I'd ever been the youngest Marine present. So for that, it's cool. They get the veteran community together. They watch football. The alcohol never stops flowing. There's a saying at the VFW, you'll die before you go broke drinking at the VFW. And that's a big stickler that I have now with, whether it be the VFW, the American Legion, or anything like that. They're great at bringing veterans together as a community. They're horrible at addressing what we're talking about here.
Yeah, because it just goes back to the same thing for when you're in the military. Here's a beer.
Here's a beer. You're getting these guys that just get out, and, they want the new guys that just get out. Come join the VFW. Come be a member of the VFW. And, the young kids that just get out, say, I'm going to go be a member of the VFW, or the Legion, or whatever, what have you, those organizations like that. And they're going to go in, and they're going to go in the beginning like they joined the military, all excited. They're going to talk to veterans. They're going to get their cute little red veteran hat or whatever. And they're going to sit there, and they're going to talk, and they're going to talk over a few beers. But after a while, that shit gets old. After a while, you're just going to the VFW to drink. And that was one of those things when I say, you see a dude on a screaming blue, Harley Davidson Road Glide. That was me. I had a route here. It was on a Friday. I'd get home, have dinner, hop on my bike. I'd go to a place called Long Shots, throw a few back there. After that, I'd take still on the bike, go to the VFW, throw a few back there at the VFW, go up the street, another bar, and then end it at a place here, all on the bike. By the time I'd get home, by the grace of God, I always made it home. There was one time I got in the driveway, and I went to throw the kickstand out, missed the kickstand, and the bike landed on the floorboards. So it didn't topple over, but I was so drunk, I didn't have the strength in my legs to get the bike upright. And it's got its little yellow flashers going off because it's at an angle, it's tilted. And I'm like, I'm at this point, I'm laughing at myself because I'm like, dude, you can't even stand this bike up. I'm like, what? And I live by myself. And I thought, I was like, I'm just going to leave the fucking bike like this. By my luck, it would have tipped over in the middle of the night. The floorboard would have broke. It would have came out to a whole slew of shit. But then I realized at that point, I was like, dude, what are you doing with yourself? Like, yeah, you're getting these connections. At that point, I was riding with a motorcycle club, because I felt like that was what I was lacking. I made that brotherhood connection. Now, I still talk to a few of them that are in the club. Some of them are still actively engaged in the club. So I won't throw the name out, but it was just another vice, except this vice had friends. I'd go out with them, ride all the way up to Fredericksburg, and I'd be hammered riding back from Fredericksburg on a Friday night / Saturday morning, coming all the way to Charlestown. It's about a 2-hour ride. I think the fastest I ever made it was like 1:45. And I get home. But, to me, I joined another brotherhood.
You needed someone.
I needed someone, and these guys, I felt like they understood because we were into the same thing. Into riding bikes, drinking beer, chasing women. There were a couple of other extracurricular activities that I witnessed but never took part in besides alcohol consumption. Wasn't my forte, but it was readily available if I wanted it. And, I was like, oh, these are my brothers. Some of them I still consider my brother because we've kept that connection outside of the club. But I made a decision to leave the club under good conditions because at a certain point in my life, a switch clicked. I'm like, dude, you're going to wind up dead. People around me were going down on their bikes. Some of them weren't getting up. Some of them lost a foot. Some of them lost their lives. And every time that I'm aware of, alcohol was involved. So I'm like, man, I went from staring at a shotgun to staring at a speedometer. It's the same deadly weapon, the way I was using it.
Yeah, nothing changed.
Nothing changed. The scenery changed. That's all it was.
How many years was that between the shotgun and that?
And the motorcycle?
Yeah.
So the shotgun was 2013, and I joined the club in 2020. So seven years, basically the second half of my military career straight into EAS and getting out of the military, coming here to West Virginia. And the alcohol flowed the entire time.
Yeah, and people don't realize it. People have no clue, like, I'm going to sound just like you now.
Welcome to the club.
Right. But I forgot what the technical term is, but there is basically a code in like the therapy world for diagnosing people. And back then, there used to be, like, if someone died in your family, you're not depressed, you're in sorrow. You're supposed to feel
mourning or something like that. Yeah.
You're supposed to be feeling these feelings. And slowly as time gone on, like it went from like you have 6 months until we label you as depression. You have 3 months all the way to 2 weeks, and then they just took it out.
Yeah.
To this day, as I know of, unless it updated within the last 3 months, there's no sorrow time. So people talk about depression, this and that, and I'm not making light of it. I'm really trying not to. But like, this is 7 years you're talking about where it has not changed, and you just kept going.
Yeah,
at the same rate.
It might have been like small spats of a gap of joy, but it always came back because it was never addressed. Like I said previously, it was pushed down. You know, I had to attack the problem in front of me, and I kind of pushed that to the side. But it always came back. To this day, some of it still comes back. You know, every now and then I'll have a drink. I couldn't tell you the last time I got drunk. It's been maybe 2 years, to the point where I drank to the point where I'd stand up and be like, "Whoa, shit!" Like every now and then I'll have a drink with, one drink with a good steak dinner, and even that has limited.
2019 was the last time I was behind the wheel intoxicated, and when I say intoxicated, I mean I thought I saw 3 yellow lines, and I don't mean like 3, 1, 2, 3. I mean like
3
dose, dose.
It's like there's not 3 double yellows anywhere in this country.
Yeah.
It's funny that you say that because during my time in the club, it was winter, so we weren't taking the bikes out. So I took my truck still up to Fredericksburg, hammered, and I was like, I'm just gonna go back home. I had to stop. And to this day, when I go visit my kids in North Carolina, I pass by the place where I pulled over because I was both nodding off and I couldn't stay in a straight line to save my damn life, pun intended. So I saw a construction zone. So if you're on Route 17 heading towards Fredericksburg, you'll see a building. It'll be on your left-hand side somewhere out by Stafford. There's a big-ass roller skate, and then there's a church. I pulled into that church because they were redoing the parking lot. And I just parked my white pickup truck next to all the other white construction pickup trucks so I'd blend in. And I slept there for like 3 hours. Because I was like, there's no way I'm going to make it. I'm going to die before I make it home. Like, I knew it.
Probably the best decision you ever made.
Oh, yeah. Because either I was going to die or I was going to get arrested. And that was it. Those were the 2 decisions, the 3 choices I had. Pull over, die, go to jail.
Or kill someone.
And that kill someone could fall into any of those 3 categories.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. But yeah, it's just one of those, I was just robbing Peter to pay Paul.
And probably another thing behind it too, because I know I have this problem. It's like you drink 10 beers and people look at you as an alcoholic, but then you look at someone else who also drinks and they're like, it's only 10 beers.
Yeah.
That ain't shit.
The crowd you surround yourself with. I could smash a bottle of Jack Daniels on a Friday.
Yeah.
At my brother's wedding, it was open bar. And I was still active duty, but this was in 2018. Yep, because I had just gotten into a motorcycle accident, so I tore the ligaments in my knees, smashed my face, all that fun stuff. So I was at his wedding. No one knew, but I had a brace on my knee because I was post-surgery. But, and I was just there, open bar. And the whole night I was just drinking Jack straight. because I knew I was like, I can handle Jack all night. Now if I start mixing stuff with like Jack and tequila or Jack and vodka,
Yeah.
it'd be a wrap. And at the end of the night, I went to go take another shot at the bar. The bartender handed me the bottle, and he's like, "This has been your bottle all night." And there was like maybe another 2.5 shots left in that bottle. He's like, "You're the only one drinking Jack Daniels. That's how I know this is your bottle." Because everybody else is drinking like Hennessy or wine, champagne, whatever. And I drove people home that night. I drove them home. You know, I had a truck full of drunk people, and I'm not gonna say I was sober. I was the least drunk, the more capable.
Right.
Drove them back to the hotel. The hotel wasn't far, but not an excuse.
No.
You know, and these were my family members in the car. So failure on my part there, as you know, just the male member of the family. But yeah, and I was just like, I could do it, and I used to brag about it. That's the problem when you start bragging about it, and then you get into the pissing competition of who can drink more.
Oh my God, yeah. And the problem is, neither one of you realizes the problems that you're creating at that point.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to keep this next subject pretty short, but like when you're in the barracks or when you're just surrounded by a bunch of people you don't even know, because that's what the military does to you, what's the easiest way to be able to get to know someone?
Have a few drinks.
I remember going down to South Carolina for reclass school.
Okay.
And fucking we're out there, we're watching. It was funny as shit because we're there for reclass school.
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina's OCS program for for the National Guard was going on that weekend, and everyone's like, oh,
Yeah.
and my buddy and I, fucking Trevor Smith, we're out there drinking beers, and you could see some of the classmates like going by, like no one's talking to anyone, and I'm the reason why. I am. To this day, I can say I'm the reason why we got fucked up for 4 weeks straight at that reclass school, because every person that walked by, I offered them a beer.
Oh yeah.
Everyone. Maybe they started drinking without me further on, because I was trying to go.
You were that guy.
Yeah, I was the guy who started the original gathering of alcohol.
It's like even when I got out, I'd go up to Jersey, visit one of my buddies. My buddy Eugene, he just got married, and you know, him and we grew up together. I've known him since I was 4 years old, and we just went out drinking, and we'd go out drinking, hit up a spot, and I had a shirt on that it had the Eagle Globe and Anchor on it, real small, nothing like I was a Marine, bright red. No, just something small. I think it might have been like a grunt style shirt or something like that. And one guy comes up to me, he goes, "When'd you get out?" And I told him. He's like, "Where were you?" I told him I was down in Camp Lejeune. He's like, "Oh, I was down in Camp Lejeune, but never met this guy a day in my life." He turns around and gets 3 of his buddies, "Hey," blah, 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 and they all come up to the bar. Next thing you know, there's fucking shots lined up at the bar. I knew these guys 15 minutes. I couldn't tell you their names. I couldn't tell you their names 10 minutes after I left the bar. Never seen them again. But what's the first thing we did? Threw them back. And that was it. You know, there's like, oh, you know, that's how Marines bond. We were discovered at Ton Tavern in a bar, and yes, we were started in a bar at Ton Tavern, but now we're using it as a fucking excuse as to why we can just start throwing them back. Like, don't get me wrong, they're rebuilding Ton Tavern in Philadelphia, and I believe it's going to be up next year. I'm going to go for the Marine Corps birthday to Ton Tavern because I want to see how they respect the Marine Corps at Ton Tavern. And I'm not going to be like, yeah, I'm going to go have so many drinks at Ton Tavern and be completely shithoused. I would have been a couple years ago. I'd be the first one there.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be ridiculous. But, you know, that's how the military community gets along.
And then you get out.
And then you get out. And then you start drinking like you were drinking in the military, like everyone is drinking. So it's a normal thing. It ain't no big deal for a dude to drink on a Wednesday night. You know?
Yeah.
But you start drinking like you were in the military on a Wednesday night at fucking Chili's. they're going to start looking at you like, what's wrong with this guy? You know,
You're just nothing more than a problem, or
You're
you're
a drunk.
another more than a statistic at that.
yep, you're another veteran drunk. I remember when my mom realized that I could drink. I was in her kitchen, and I had a bottle of, oh man, what was it? Crown Apple. And I was just talking to my mom. I was at her house visiting. I'd already got out. Nope, I was still in the military. It's my last year or two. I'm just sitting there talking. My brother had been there, and I was just talking to my mom, shooting the shit, and she's cooking, and I'm drinking, just pouring it in a cup, not mixing it with nothing. I don't even think I had ice in the cup. And then my mom's like, "You okay?" I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "You sure?" I was like, "Yeah, why?" She goes, "That bottle's empty. Your standard Crown Apple." I'm just sitting there talking to my mom, and I drank it like it was apple juice.
I think every single service member has had that. If their mom's in their life, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know I have.
Yeah.
And my mom's brought it up to me multiple times. When I told my grandmother about the psychedelic trip, I've said it very openly on here.
Okay.
The only thing I haven't said was a name, where, legal or illegal,
Yep.
nor am I going to state.
Yeah.
So fuck you.
Get your own.
Yeah, right. I remember telling my grandmother, I was like, "Yeah, Grammy, I'm like a month sober at this point." She started crying. I had no clue how worried she was about me. It wasn't a problem. I'm like, I'm just drinking.
Yeah.
Leave me alone. I'm
not
coping.
hurting. I'm not hurting nobody.
Yeah. And
You're hurting everybody.
yeah, you don't realize it though.
Yep.
And it is sad. It's sad because, like you said, and it's not to talk down on the VFW, but like, you go there to try to connect, you're mainly going back to alcohol.
Yeah. That's how they connect.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but a good majority over, I would say, and this is just me, not statistics or none of that, good 90% of dudes in there are just there to sling back drinks.
Yeah.
You know, and I tried to pinpoint at what time, even before the depression set in, I was drinking, but I didn't see it as a problem. And tried to pinpoint when in my life, you know, my real first, I guess, emptiness feeling kicked in. You know, when you feel like something has been taken from you. So growing up, my dad was in and out. We have a better relationship now. You know, he suffered from alcoholism, and it was ever present. Now, there's been rumors of other stuff that I never witnessed, so I'm not going to say nothing. But I did see the alcohol, you know, and I grew up not liking him very much. He officially left the house when I was 13. Still lived in Jersey. But my grandfather was the, wow, hold on, give me a second. So my grandfather was the male father figure in my life. You know, my father was always present, you know, even when he wasn't living in the house. He still had a presence. But I was raised to be a man by my grandfather. And to me, that was like the connection that a man has with his father was what I had with my grandfather. He passed away in 2010. I was in training 29 Palms, California, out by Joshua Tree. Only time I've ever been out to California. So right from the bat, I knew California sucked because I was in the desert for 6 weeks.
Now they're on fire.
Yeah, now they're on fire. My, how the times have changed. We're freezing and they're on fire.
Yeah.
So he had been sick. At that point, he was in his 80s. And he'd been sick. He'd been in the hospital. But I didn't understand the extent because I was in the military towards that time. So I wasn't getting, you know, the day-to-day playback of what's going on with Grandpa. But every time I spoke to him on the phone, he sounded normal. He was born in 1930s Cuba. If that says anything about the type of man you have to be to live in 1930s Cuba. Made it to the States. I don't know much of that side of his life. Um, but he worked every day, got up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day, clockwork. Would drive to New York, do his job, come back. He'd be home. He'd be there in time for dinner. He'd watch a Yankees game. Big Yankees fan. He's the reason I'm a Yankees fan. I was born the day the Mets won the World Series. October 27th, 1986. My dad is a diehard Mets fan, and I'm a Yankees fan. And he gets mad at me. I was like, you let me hang out with Grandpa too much. That's your fault. So I used to go down there every day and watch the game with him. And I can say I never heard him say he was tired. I never heard him say he couldn't because he worked all day. This man would go to work, come home, and I couldn't count. Well, I can count on one hand how many of my Little League baseball games he missed. And I played Little League for 3 years. And I'd probably still have fingers left over. So he'd work all day, come home, sometimes take me to practice or take me to the game, get to the game, take me out for a hot dog or ice cream or whatever after the game. And then we'd go back home and watch the Yankee game. And so fast forward 2010, I'm in California. This is November. I saw him in October around my birthday. And I knew he was in the hospital while I was in California. And then one day I wake up and my squad leader's like, hey, Ortiz, come here. He's like, I got a phone call from your uncle last night. He goes, your grandfather's gone. And that was the first time I felt real pain that's not physical. Like I remember just slumped. And we're getting ready to go out on a field op for 2 weeks. I'm in full battle rattle, everything, Kevlar, flak jacket. The truck's ready to go. And I just sunk. Like I didn't fall into him, but my shoulders dropped. I still remember it. And I was like, what the fuck? And it didn't really set in. I called my mom. She confirmed it. Spoke to my uncle, who I consider, we kind of like, he's like more like an older brother than my uncle. And, it happened. And then what did I have to do? I had to get on the fucking truck. I didn't have time to grieve. I didn't have time to process any of this. They gave me, 15 minutes? It's like, hey, vehicles leave at this time. Take some time, go around the back of the tent, do what you got to do, get your shit together. This isn't what they said, but, it's what I had to do.
Yeah, it's the military aspect. It's the same way relating. If your fucking best friend dies right in front of you in combat,
you don't got time.
You ain't got time.
Yeah. So it's one of those, I went behind the tent, had my moment, had my cry, grabbed the bootlaces, laced them up, tied them up, got in the back of the truck, and I was blowing shit up 2 hours later. Doing cover and movement, fire and movement, digging mortar pits. So I didn't have time for it to process. And then I couldn't attend the funeral because we were out there. My family was willing to wait the 3 weeks for me to get back. And I was like, no. Because growing up in a Hispanic household, the family will mourn until the body's in the ground. I was like, there's no way I'm going to have my family, go through that for 3 weeks just because I'm not there. I told myself, no, do it. I'll see him when I get back. And that's what I did. And I think not attending the funeral didn't allow me the closure. Not physically seeing him laid in the ground. I'm just taking people's fucking word for it that he's in there. I mean, yes, I know he's in there. But,
You weren't there.
I wasn't there. So that hole is still there. And I've gone back to the cemetery and seen it many times, but that hole is still there. Nothing's going to fill that. And I don't know why I held a resentment. Not to him. I don't even know who I held it to.
Possibly yourself.
Could be myself for feeling that way, and I took it out on some of my family members because they were allowed that time to grieve, so they dealt with it a better way. And times would go by where nobody would go visit the gravesite. No one would the family started to distance themselves, both physically, people moving, and how I feel emotionally. Like to my family, my grandfather was the glue. That glue is gone now, so we're slowly starting to drift, as family does from time to time, especially when you move. Right now my grandmother's the only one still, and my aunt, she's the only one up in New Jersey. Everybody else trickled down to Florida. And I got mad. I was like, how can you leave grandma, up in Jersey? My mom just moved down to Florida about a year and a half ago, but, she flies my grandma down there to visit. I'm like, how can you leave her up there by herself? I'm like, the fuck is wrong with you people? You're her kids. But I didn't fully understand it. Like, they explained it to her, we want you to come with us. My grandma's like, I'm 80 years old. I'm not packing up this house. You're out of your mind. Like, my grandma's one of those, she got so many pictures on the wall, you can't see that there's a wall there.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, no. She's like, I'm staying here. This is where I live. This is my house. That's where she was with my grandfather. And it's just one of those, my grandma's still 84 up there, just kicking it. And she's like, yeah, I'm the youngest one of my friends. I was like, ooh, grandma, you might want to start making some new friends. I don't know how much longer your friends are gonna be around. But, they had that opportunity to grieve appropriately. And by the time it was my turn to grieve, no one was grieving with me.
Yeah, that was...
So again, I was left alone. And they're like, not saying that they said this directly, but they're like, they didn't understand why I was getting so angry.
They never will.
No. And they were afforded the opportunity to grieve together, as a family does.
They had to grieve together while you had to keep going. Life was going on.
Mm-hmm. My life was going on. Their life was going on. But the lives weren't communicating.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I feel like that was the first point where I felt depression really kick in, where I first felt no one understands me. I can say that was probably the first time where I felt they don't understand me.
That was like the first biggest thing you had to just stomach.
Yeah, to stomach alone. Yeah, I was married, but I had to deal with that alone, surrounded by literally a battalion of Marines, and I was alone. Again, people like Bob Halsey, they were there. They were there to console me during that 15 minutes where I lost my shit behind the tent. They just made sure I didn't bash my head in with a Kevlar.
Yeah.
Losing it, and my command couldn't send me home due to the technicality of he was not, what's the damn word? Direct family member, something like a father, mother type deal. So the command, whether they couldn't or they didn't want to kind of try and push, I wouldn't know. And that was a great chain of command. So I'm sure if I pushed hard enough, they probably would have got me home. But I also didn't want to do that to the boys. We were about to go to Afghan 3 months later. So I was like, I got to get this in. This is like the last real training.
They're relying on you.
Yeah, the last real training thing that we're going to do right before Christmas. We'll get back in January, and by March 8th, we left for Afghanistan. So you got to do all your classes, you got to do all your shit, get all your wills and your power of attorneys and all that shit, storage. So everything went by real quick. So I was like, I'm not going to leave the boys. Me leaving the boys ain't going to make him pop out that fucking box.
He ain't going to pop out of the box, and then you're going to have resentment towards yourself because you left the boys.
Yep. If we're in Afghanistan and somebody were to die, like, man, could I have prevented that? If I would have stayed, would my training have been better, such and such and such. So, but yeah, and, like you said, one of the hardest things is just feeling completely alone. And that's the biggest issue that the veteran community has, feeling completely alone. And then again, that deployment, I started to see my boys take their lives. Because I don't know if people recall, but there was a picture that showed up of individuals urinating on dead Taliban bodies. And that was my deployment. Those were the individuals from my battalion. So when that got out, it put every political eye. We had a fantastic deployment. We did things that changed the name of the game of how scout snipers operated in conjunction with tanks and armor assets. And like we were out there doing, quote unquote, God's work in a new way. And it was all beautiful. We got the praise we should be getting for something like that until that fucking picture came out.
And it all changed.
Then we were the pieces of shit who,
the example.
We had to be made an example of. Whether you feel good, bad, or indifferent of war, things happen in war. And me, my personal opinion, the only bad thing that happened about that situation is that they took a fucking picture of it. People can be like, oh, you can't desecrate bodies. That's nothing compared to what they did.
You're like, we just blew the fuck out of all these people, and we saw limbs going here, limbs going there.
So while I was there, we had to deal with our own brothers dying, and IEDs went off, and you got Taliban stringing parts of my brother's body in a fucking tree that we got to go get. We can't leave that shit up there in a tree, but I can't piss on a body. Not that I did, but
Yeah. It's like they're treating our people like a joke, but my own people are going to treat me like shit because you could have done a whole lot of worse things. You could have gone off and killed civilians.
Yeah,
no, you just killed a fucking terrorist.
Crazy. And it was one of those things, once those pictures came out, the ridicule that came down the pipeline from people wearing suits, higher-ups that wear suits instead of camis, forcing the higher-ups in camis to make examples of these men who went out and did impossible things for ungrateful individuals. We told these boys to go do something. They told us to go do something. They didn't do it. We did it. But, people are like, oh, well, you fought another man's war. No, I didn't. I went over there to make sure my brother didn't die. I didn't fight this war for anybody except the dudes that I spent every day with. Like, yeah, there's orders and shit like that, but my job was to make sure he didn't die. And his job was to make sure I didn't die.
Yeah, it's not like you're doing fucking construction, building a house for someone where nothing bad's going to go wrong besides a stupid inspector. No, it's life or death.
Mm-hmm.
And that really goes back to the very beginning of what we're talking about. Suddenly you get out, you get at home, and someone's like, I just stubbed my toe. And you're like, shut the fuck up.
Tape that shit up. You got 9 more.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck about your toe.
But these are the things that a lot of people don't really actually comprehend or realize. And it goes right back to the whole, you're alone.
Yeah.
And then, that stupid gnat.
That gnat's been in here since we set up. I want to eat him if I catch him.
So for where you're at today, I actually want to ask this question.
Yeah.
As much as I love David Goggins, he lives within the dark spaces of his head. Do you believe today people gain suicidal ideation because of the lack of balance, meaning either working too hard or resting way too much?
Absolutely. You have to find that middle ground, because you can literally work yourself to death, or you can rest your body so much that your body's like, okay, we don't serve a purpose anymore, so we're just going to start to shut down. And then, if you choose for the rest part, you just want to be a lazy ass, for lack of a better word, and let society support you, your body's going to start to fall apart. And if your physical starts to fall apart, your mental starts to fall apart. Because then you start to think, where did I go wrong? Why doesn't anybody love me? Why am I alone? Why can't I meet someone nice? The stripper said she liked me. She said I was funny. The 5th proposal didn't work. I'll try 6. But it's one of those where you can rest too much to where it becomes deteriorating to your soul, because no one wants to be around lazy people. And anyone who wants to be around lazy people, that lazy person should keep them away also. You got all these people that just want to let others take care of them. Nobody wants to take care of a grown-ass baby. But then again, you've got the other side where you can go too hard to the point where you physically start to destroy your body. Like you said, I respect David Goggins 100%. That dude's a savage. He has gotten me off the couch many a time when I didn't want to. I just sat there and I'm like, oh, David, you son of a gun. Now I got to go lace my shoes up.
Real quick, I want to throw this out there. Within like the first week of posting my first podcast ever, the very first comment I ever got was someone saying, hey, man, sorry you wasted your money, but this isn't for you. Sorry about that. I just want to save you the time and effort. I screenshot the fuck out of that, and I still have it.
Hell yeah. Put that up on that wall. Be like, I'll see you again one day, buddy.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. It might have got under my skin a little bit. Luckily, 43 minutes later, that was on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And then on YouTube, I think he deleted his account or something. Comment's gone. I have it screenshot, though, where someone thanked me for something I put up. And I was like, that's it. That was my first taste of those who are going to hate me and those who are going to thank me.
Oh, yeah. You can't please everybody. No matter what you do, there's going to be a group that loves it, and there's going to be a group that's going to try and destroy it, try and destroy you. The most successful people in the world still have a crowd of people who hate their fucking guts.
Mm-hmm.
People hate firefighters. Hope your house don't fucking catch fire one day, homeboy.
Yeah.
Go ahead and call the Boy Scouts to put out your house. People think firefighters are, for some reason, they don't like firefighters. For some reason, people don't like law enforcement. Like, I get it. Law enforcement isn't put in the best light, and I'm not going to go down that road. But, you need them.
Yeah.
You need the balance. But with that comes bad. But there's more good than bad.
There's no such thing as perfection.
No. You can chase it forever, and you never even smell its fart.
And that's one person, though. We're talking trying to be perfection for one person, let alone an organization.
Oh, yeah. When you have an organization whose sole purpose is to address diversity, which means you have to have a diverse group of people within that organization. With diversity comes good and bad. People raised completely different. People whose values are different than the people that they serve. You're going to have people that are fucked up. You're going to have people that squeak by, and then you just have to deal with what comes with that. But as a whole, it has its purpose, and it serves its purpose as a whole. But that whole is full of many, 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 many people.
Yeah. And the best thing you could do about it is just accountability. That's, I mean,
now more than ever.
Yeah. I hate to be like making the solution so simple, but I don't see any other way. And I really even goes to the education system, because how many teachers are in there just to have a paycheck? Meanwhile, they're raising the next generation.
Yeah.
But you don't hear too many people talking about that and supporting it. I got very blessed the last 3 years having amazing teachers for my children. Like, I never thought I'd be on a 100% streak right now.
Nice.
But that's not going to be forever.
No. They're going to find that one teacher that is there to collect the check, that doesn't give a damn, that's going to pass them, not them, but that's going to pass students just to get them out the classroom. Growing up, I was in Catholic school from first grade until I graduated high school. High school was an all-boy Catholic high school in the middle of Jersey City, New Jersey, which is like ghetto. So you got these Catholic school boys. Luckily, there was an all-girl Catholic school down the street. So, hey, we had to catch the same bus, you know what I'm saying? But, if we walked, we had to walk by all the public schools. And we're wearing bullseyes. We're in uniforms. But we had good teachers. We had bad teachers. Growing up, I had... So the show Boy Meets World, are you familiar with it?
Mm-mm.
So there was a show, Boy Meets World, in the 90s. It was like Mr. Feeney was the teacher. And he was one of those like amazing teachers where he would actually give a damn about the kids on a personal level too. So I had a teacher, his name was Mr. McGinnis, Mr. Joseph McGinnis. I don't know where you're at in life, but God bless you. I had him in 6th grade and 7th grade. And then my school shut down. Before I was going to graduate 8th grade, they took all the Catholic schools in Hoboken, there were 3 of them, and combined them into one academy. And lo and behold, by the grace of God, I had Mr. McGinnis for my 8th grade in that same school. And, he was the first teacher that I felt actually gave a damn because he would talk to you instead of talking at you.
Yeah.
Catholic school, strict Catholic school teachers, sometimes. I had good teachers, but there were some where I'm like, I'm not too fond of you, nor you of me.
I'm not going to point out any names, but especially my senior year of high school.
Yeah.
Explain to me why I got like 6 A's and one I passed with a 61. Yeah, 59 was failing for that high school.
Just made it.
Yeah, so like explain that to me.
Yeah. But it's like you said, back to the school system. If someone does not want to be a teacher, they should not be a teacher. It's not one of these collect a paycheck things. You're affecting the future of a family, of a generation, of a country. You're directly having an impact on your local community.
You're creating a statistic.
Yeah. And they don't get paid that much anyway. Like, there's so many other jobs. Like, I have friends who are teachers, and they want to be teachers. They have the drive. They have the desire. And then they got coworkers that are bitching and complaining every day. I would rather someone want to be, the ones who want to be a teacher also have a part-time job so that they can get stuff to help the kids in the classroom, And it's just, you can't just push these people through. Same way now in the military. I had someone reach out to me about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. His son is a couple years younger than me. I'm 38. I want to say he's maybe 30. And he's like, yeah, my son needs to get his life in order. I'm thinking about, well, he was younger than 30 because I don't think the military would take him now at 30. He's like, I'm thinking about putting him in the military. I said, well, first of all, you can't put him in the military. He needs to put himself in there. I said, second of all, he's not in the proper mental headspace to join the military right now. I said, if he's in a bad mental space now, he's not mentally tough enough. And I told him, I said, dude, the Marine Corps and the military as a whole, I was like, they're not a daycare. Do not treat them as such, because what you're going to do is you're going to send a mentally unstable individual into
the most stressful
environment. And then at some point, they're going to re-release him back into society. He's going to come back, for the most part, worse than when he left, because he's not going to know how to cope with all of that. And then he's going to become, as fucked up as it sounds, a burden on society.
Yeah.
They're not a daycare. It's not an adult daycare system.
It's a different world.
It's a different.
It's completely different world. No one will ever fucking understand what it's like the moment you put that uniform on. You go out there. You're surrounded by other people in the military, and you're there for a mission.
And God help you if you show weakness. We will eat you. We eat our own.
Yeah.
The military eats its own, and certain jobs within the military, like, as soon as you show weakness, we will throw you out, or try to throw you out on your ass. Be like, you're not with us. We'll send you. We used to, which stupid now that I think about it. We used to send the dudes who couldn't cut the mustard. We'd send them to the armory. Like, cool, you're gonna count serial numbers and guns for the next 2 years, because you can't huck it with us. But then we're like, fuck, we gotta go pull our weapons out at like 3 a.m. And then we'd get back after a field up, have to turn our guns in, and it's the same dude that we shunned like a leper. It's like, hey, here's my gun. He'd look at it like, still dirty, clean it again.
And he got his revenge.
Oh, yeah. Oh, 100%. We're like, oh, you got me, you son of a bitch. Good on you. Touche, good sir. Touche.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just one of those where it starts, now, especially as a society, it starts with development. How you develop people. If you don't give them the tools to cope, as they get older, they're not going to figure them out. It's just going to get harder, and a lot more things are going to get in the way. They're going to become legal drinking age, and now you got to deal with that shit.
Yeah.
And depending on their demographic, where they come from, their environment, violence, drugs, women, certain types of individuals, gangs, whatever, they're going to fall into something. Something is going to take control of them that they're going to think that they belong to. because we as a society missed our opportunity.
Missed the opportunity, and something that a lot of people don't recognize. And it took 2 years of therapy for me to realize is the gain of addiction to adrenaline.
Yep.
You don't fucking realize it until the moment you stop getting that adrenaline. And it just clicks. And I'm actually going to follow up with this. Should it be taboo to say, I have been having suicidal thoughts lately?
If you would have asked me that question a couple years ago or while I was in, I'd say yes. But through the life experiences that I've had and what I've seen through other people, it's necessary to let somebody know. 100% necessary to let somebody know, because sometimes just speaking about it takes a little bit of that weight off of the individual. They no longer feel alone because they've let it be known. Like, I'm gonna let you know right now, some of the stuff I've already said, I've never told anybody. I came on when we first communicated, and that's why I asked you, hey, what's the angle of your podcast? And you told me, depression and that type of stuff. I said, all right. I've wanted to let some of this stuff go. I just didn't have many people to talk to. So I said the best way to do it is for me to fucking tell everybody, basically.
Right.
Anyone who's going to click play is going to hear, and I was like, you know what? I've been holding on to it for a while, and that's one of the best things to do is to let somebody know when you're not feeling right, when shit's not adding up, let somebody know. Because just the act of telling.
Yeah. I'll follow up with like 2 things with that. One, not that we talked about suicide at all with Preston and Tanya, but as soon as I clicked end, afterwards, they literally said to me, this was one of the most therapeutic things they've ever done. Just talking about shit. Yep. And 2, luckily, again, I don't know if I've ever said this on here, but like, I want my hardships to be a learning lesson for others. And with that being said, I've been very open about my past with suicidal ideation, about waking up at 2 a.m, shooting out of bed, being like, this is the fucking day I'm going to kill myself.
Yeah, this is it.
Yeah, like, I'm ready. And waiting an hour for my best friend to wake up just for him to be able to talk to me and just be with me so I'm not alone until he got to work. Just when your best friend tells you, hey, call the fucking chaplain as soon as the clock opens, do it. And you're like, well, at that point, I'm listening to him. One of the greatest things the military can ever teach you is to listen to others. You're told to do something, you do it. He told me to do it, I did it.
Yep.
I called a chaplain. Chaplain set me up with family services. Family services set me up with my therapist. Had her for 2 years. Greatest thing that fucking happened to me, because my kids wouldn't have a father to this day.
And all you did was talk to somebody.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to put that question out there, is because, well, also follow up with this. I cannot tell you how many times I've gone that look when I openly said, yeah, I've thought about killing myself a couple times. And they're like, and it's a surprise, but you can also see like a glimpse in their eyes, like, holy shit, like, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one who's ever thought this. And that's why I say, that's why I stated, should it be taboo to say? My answer is no.
No, not
like,
at all.
The best way to be able to have more people not commit suicide is to make it okay to say it. And the hardest thing with the military at that is shut the fuck up, man up, move on.
Or, you do talk to somebody. Now you're stigmatized, now you've got that scarlet letter on you.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in a combat arms job, they're not going to take anybody with suicidal ideations or tendencies and give them a fucking gun or a bomb. They can be like, no, you got to, and that just makes it worse, because now you feel like
you lost your purpose.
You lost your purpose, exactly. You're like, I opened up, because I'm always told, hey, you ever want to talk? I'm here to talk. And you go talk.
And you feel
punished. The next week, you're like, well, why am I not going to the range? You know, why do I have to check in with the duty every night at, 8 and 10 p.m. and then I got to check in with him again at 5 in the morning? Because when I would do duty, barracks duty, it's a 24-hour post. You had your regular green monster logbook. It's a green notebook. And then you had a list of the dudes that needed to check in, whether they were on, whether they got NJP'd or, they're on some kind of watch list, for lack of a better word. These dudes need to check in with you at these assigned times. If they don't, you need to go to their room. Those are the dudes that are on the watch list. Either they're on legal hold, they went to the SACO, which is the Substance Abuse Coordinations Officer, because, they got a DUI or some shit, or they just openly admitted that they have a drinking problem. Now, instead of, getting them help, you're telling them, I don't want to see anything in your room, and you got to check in with the duty. You're making that walk of shame every 2 hours to the duty hut. Everybody knows why you're going down there. Yes, these individuals should be looked after. They should be held accountable. You got to make sure, the barracks has, 100, 200 people in it. So you got to make sure the dudes that are of concern are, still upright. But, sometimes they feel, I spoke to these people and they cast me away. They are passing me off to someone else.
They're not actually taking care of you.
Exactly.
They're not being free. I actually have a story. I'm not going to mention names out of the respect for the family. But in my last unit, we had a soldier. He popped hot for cocaine. And it's out of the unit's hand at that point.
Yeah.
So it has
That's
nothing.
UCMJ. They can't do nothing for you.
Yeah, it not the commander, not the XO, not anything. So no blame on them. He popped hot for cocaine. They put him through the substance abuse, and they're kicking him the fuck out. Well, 2 months later, he overdosed on laced cocaine, fentanyl.
That shit's everywhere. That shit is everywhere now.
Like, our unit, we held a funeral, and I was on antidepressants at this time, so I didn't feel shit.
Yeah.
That was the worst part. Like, did it make the suicidal ideation go away? Yeah, but I didn't feel shit.
It made everything go away, probably.
Yeah, and so our unit had a funeral. We did everything. We got in formation, private such and such.
Mm-hmm.
Here, first sergeant, private such and such. Here, first sergeant, private such and such. No answer. Private such and such. No answer. Private such and such. Report to... What's it called? You guys might... It's a name of a grave. And that's when... You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the name escaped. Like, the actual terminology escapes me right now. Yeah.
But... Yeah, I mean...
What did they expect?
Yeah.
I have a story, something similar. I also won't name any names, but the individual he's still with us. He's doing better now. He, within a span of 3 weeks, 2 weeks, he had lost a grandmother and a father. And then, he did his leave, came back, did his leave again to attend the funeral services, came back. By happenstance, we were taking a urinalysis test, and he popped for marijuana. This was back, I'd say, the span of 2014. And they processed him out. I don't know. He got honorable conditions, I don't know how that worked because you pop for a substance, so I don't understand that aspect of it. But now the unit did him right, because they understood he lost two of the closest members of his family.
Right, and I just want to make it very clear. Our unit did him what my guy right. Everything was out of the unit's control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was one of those. And even after he was processed out, chain of command still followed up with him just to check on him how he was doing. And still to this day I communicate with him. We follow each other on social media, and it was cool. He was actually my ammo man in Afghanistan, so we were basically holding pockets,
right.
Walking together. He's doing real good now. God bless him and his beautiful family. But it's just one of those, sometimes life just deals you a shitty hand. And who you have around you really will make or break you.
Yeah.
You can have a whole bunch of people around you and you're still broken because you get the wrong people. If you have something happen and your boy's like, oh, fuck that, let's go out, let's get some drinks, let's get some girls, blah, blah. That's not the one you want to go out with. He may be a good time, but he's not a long time.
No, you're just putting it off.
Mm-hmm. You're just filling a void. And sadly, that's the road a lot of people now, especially now with society and culture now, it's all about, and I think now one of the biggest things that's leading to, suicide and depression, social media. I know we're heavy, both of us, on social media. Social media does 100% have its place. But a lot of the stuff that's dealing with depression, causing people to feel certain ways, is the social media comparison.
Yeah, the filter.
Yep, the filters. All you see is everybody's perfect day. Everybody's on this vacation to, Cancun, Bali, Brazil. You're only seeing the good stuff. You're not seeing all the behind the scenes, real life, day-to-day shit. That's not what everybody's going to put up.
Yeah.
And then people get into a place where they start comparing, and a lot of relationships fail because of comparison. One individual in a relationship looks at who the other individual's following, on social media. And, why are you following him or her? Why are you liking this or that photo or this and that? You want more of that? Well, that's not me. Why is he into that? And then it starts crumbling from the inside, and then relationships dwindle, fall apart, and now they're alone.
Or vice versa, where social media is making you feel as if your relationship should be this way, and just
Yes.
putting all... I mean, everyone has their own problems, and that's the thing. My problems are different than your problems, and I have to address those problems. And sometimes the other individual is like, wow, that person looks like they really have their life together over there.
Yep.
Yeah,
Why can't my life be like that?
Yeah, why can't I go on more dates?
Yeah, or like you're in a relationship and you're looking at other people in a relationship on social media and you think their life is perfect. And then you look over at the couch and you're like, why can't I be like that? Why can't we be like that? Why aren't you doing more? Why aren't you like him or her?
Mm-hmm.
And then you start getting depressed. And then now the person's drinking because they're upset at their significant other not doing what they think they should be doing when that person may be doing their very best. And, in the other person's mind, they may be taking the proper steps to get to where they want to get to. They're just not moving as fast as the other person wants them to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So now that person's like, well, I'm not doing enough. I don't want to lose them, so I have to do more. And then they start, spiraling out of control.
And then family might get involved.
Family gets involved. The kids suffer because now, mom and dad are arguing, or, why is dad or mom drinking, or why isn't one parent here? Worst thing to do, God forbid, the parents get into an argument that turns physical.
Yeah.
They're taking the kids. The kids are gone. And now you've just destroyed children.
Because they're never going to forget that.
No.
It's a label.
Yep. It's a label. They may, God forbid, they see a domestic issue in the house, or sometimes the kids themselves are victims. Because of, if we didn't have kids, we'd have a better life. Shit like that.
Yeah. And
that,
be able to go on more vacations.
Yeah, we'd have more money. I've heard of cases where, one of the parents is resentful towards a child because the child's disabled. The fucking child didn't have nothing to do with that.
No, you
and
didn't choose.
And I say fucking child with all due respect. Yeah. And
they
it's
didn't
like,
choose to come into this world.
Yeah, you brought them here. And the fact that they have a disability is not their fault. We don't know whose fault it is. But for the child, the child's already paying for that.
Yeah.
Through living life. And for you, the individual, to hold a resentment towards a child, like, well, we got all these medical bills, and I'm not even going to go down the medical
Oh,
Insurance will be here forever.
we could do this do that one a different
Absolutely,
day.
I'm all for it. But for them to be like, we've got all these medical bills. If we didn't have these medical bills, we'd be better off. There's no way we can keep doing this.
It's almost forgetting what love actually is.
It's forgetting what being a parent and a family is all about. And that was one of the issues that happened with me while I was in the military. I like I said earlier, I went full Marine. I put all my focus into my job for the most part. My family was taken care of. Yes, they were not without.
They were financially taken care of.
But
they were physically
were without.
Yeah.
They were without me to my best potential. And I didn't realize that till later on in life after I got out. After my son and his mother went back to North Carolina, and I went down that stint of booze, bikes, and babes, And then when I parted ways with the club, the main reason I parted ways with the club was because I realized, my children are now getting older. So their priorities are different now. Now I need to set them up for life. Teach my son how to be not just a successful man, but a caring man, but also a man.
Yeah.
And let him know. I talk to him now, and I see he's an emotional kid. I can see when he holds it in, and I tell him, like, dude, what's wrong? Nothing. What's wrong? Like, I know something's up, and I can see because he'll start blinking his eyes. Like,
That's my oldest.
and I tell him, I say, you can tell me. And I'll talk to him about my emotions to let him know it's okay. Because he's 10.
They need to be taught it because they're not going to be taught it any other way.
No.
Let alone when they become an adult, it becomes even worse.
And to my daughter, to be the best example of, what a man should be towards her and to people in general. To hear my daughter hear me talk about my emotions, my feelings and how I feel about certain things, and let her know, because she's 12. That is a very hard time. So I hear, I'm not a woman, for a young girl during development. I remember when I was in 7th grade, 8th grade, and my son getting to be, of an age where he's starting to notice things, and explaining to him, like, dude, if something bothers you, it's okay to talk to somebody. This tough guy stuff, it's not going to work. You'll realize when you get older, there's a time and place to do it. You're not just going to break down in the middle of a busy highway, and talk about your emotions. But to let him know that it's okay. To let my daughter know that, men do have feelings. You can talk about it. To let her know it's okay to talk to me about it. Because I don't know too many, young girls that want to go talk to their dad about their emotions. They'll talk to their mom, or they'll talk to their friends, or, grandma, whatever. But to let her know, it's all right. That a man isn't hard all the time. There needs to be a balance. To let my son know a man out in the world is hard. It will grind you out, and you're just going to have to sharpen up. The world's going to grind on you, and you can either sharpen up or you can become dull and useless.
Right, and that's when I said you need to learn to take the time, though. Like, sharpen up 100%.
Mhm.
It's the whole balance thing that we were talking about before.
Yeah.
But I think the sharper you get, the harder the balance becomes.
Yes. Because it's one of those, you make these adjustments. And, the one thing that a lot of people have problems with, and still myself to this day, is at the end of the day, you're out working all day. You're dealing with life outside of the house. When you come home, you should leave all that shit outside. Your home is your home. Excuse me. Your home is your home. It is where your peace is supposed to be. Now, yes, there's going to be stressors within the house. a good relationship addresses those. And if you're not in a good relationship to address those issues, and you find that you're not looking forward to coming home, because I've been there, you know, we all see that meme of The Rock. He's sitting in a car and he's like biting his fist, and it's like, you know, when staff sergeant's waiting before staff sergeant shows up to formation, and he knows it's a Monday and his platoon fucked up on the weekend, so he has to deal with all that. You know, I've been that guy that would park in the driveway and be like, oh, here we go. I left one shit show to come to another, because now I gotta walk in the door and deal with whatever state of mind the individual in my house is dealing with right now.
And there's no organization behind that, at least within the military.
Yeah.
There is a set way.
Yeah. So, you know, just finding that balance. The key to any part of your life is you have to have balance. You have to have the peace with the chaos, you know, the yin and the yang. It has to be there. If not, there's no way it's going to be successful in any part of your life. You're not going to have a successful family. You're not going to have a successful career. You're not going to have successful health if there's no balance. You know, your mental health and your physical health go hand in hand. You can't be a successful individual if you have more of one than the other. You know, if you're not physically in shape, that means, you know, hormonally you're out of whack, which means your brain's not firing right, which means you're not going to be thinking correctly, which means, you know, blah, 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 blah. You know, same way that if your mental health is bad, your physical health is going to be lacking, because you're not going to have the desire to want to go to the gym or go run or, you know, be a productive member of society. And then the depression kicks in because, oh, I'm fat. I can't find nobody. Nobody loves me. No one wants to do this. Why don't they understand me? And then we just start trickling back down that rabbit hole. Like, I'll have a beer, you know, something to take the edge off. Right?
And it's easy.
It's easy.
And I think the other thing to throw into this is, like, getting that balance doesn't happen overnight.
No.
God.
And it's never complete.
No, I'm far from complete. I'm not even 25%.
Yeah, like, some days are good. Some days you're like, man, I fucking killed it today, you know?
Yeah.
And other days you're like, oh, man, this ain't it.
I can say, though, like, this is, like, I don't know, 2.5 months me not drinking. I get so many, like, good job at this or that, blah, blah, blah. Behind closed doors, can't tell you how many nights where I'm like, this is the night. Gas station's half a mile down the road. Like, I'm going to do it tonight. But what I can say is the feeling you have the next day, celebrate that win.
Yep.
Celebrate that fucking win. You went another day without drinking.
Yep.
Good for you.
And if you wake up, you already won. You won against death.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you woke up. The powers that be, whatever religion you believe, even if you don't believe in religion, you believe of, you know, the universe, something allowed you to wake up. Your roof didn't collapse on your face in the middle of the night. You know, so take that as a victory and take it as another day to do as best as you can.
Yep.
You know, and I think some of the craziest things, I know you spoke about your psychedelic experience, and people believe in plant medicine, and I'm one of those who believes, you know, the plant medicine has its purpose. What does not have its purpose is how readily available the negative vices are everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the only reason there's a Dollar General right up the road, the only reason that Dollar General doesn't serve alcohol, there's a school across the street. That's the only reason. And I asked, and they told me, because every Dollar General I've ever been to has beer.
Yeah.
I used to work for a beer company right here in Jefferson County, and we'd make deliveries to Dollar General, you know, gas stations. And I was like, man, why didn't that Dollar General get beer? You know, it's within the boundaries. And I asked the lady, she goes, we're too close to the school. I was like, it makes sense. Like, I can get a 30 rack of, you know, Natty Ice for like $15. But I can't get an appointment for whatever condition I have. You know, I can't get a therapist, but they'll give me, you know, Oxycontin.
Yeah.
Or if you can't get anything, go to Martinsburg, walk down the street. You'll find anything you want. Go to Martinsburg 10 o'clock at night, and you can get whatever you want, most likely.
I remember the first time I moved here back in 2014. It was like within the first month. Someone's like, hey, you smoke? I was like, what?
What are you talking about?
I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
You're just going to ask me openly like that, huh?
Oh, yeah. And it's worse now.
Yeah.
You know, I can't, you can't get a therapist appointment, or, you can't get into whatever appointment it is you need to be better. You can get alcohol 24/7.
Well, one of the things I can relate alcohol with, look at the commercials for alcohol today. Look at the commercials for smoking back in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
They're very similar. It's considered a social norm,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the problem. It should not be a social norm. The person I did the psychedelic with, I'm trying to not use pronouns.
I'll keep my mouth shut on a joke I had about a second ago. When I was trying to get you canceled before you started.
Right. But they said the history of alcohol is not practiced for what it is today.
That sounds amazing.
It does. It does sound amazing. Again, testing out these microphones for the first time.
Yeah. My thirsty ass.
Alcohol was made for celebration. It wasn't made for coping. It was never designed for coping. When Jesus made wine out of water, it was for a wedding.
Yeah.
And
look at everything, all the wine and all the meads and everything was cause for celebration.
Yeah, not, oh, I just got done a hard day's work, I deserve a beer.
Yep.
It wasn't ever made for that. But society turned it into a social norm, and then they labeled you as a problem because you took the bait.
Yeah.
And you're set up to fail right in the very beginning.
Yep.
Turn on your TV. There it is. Watch a movie. Watch a cool movie. You'll always see like
drinking and smoking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you think, and where do they have all these things at? Bars, nightclubs, casinos. Casinos don't got windows, but that alcohol stays flowing all day, and you don't have to pay for it. I went to a casino in Atlantic City, Harrah's. I don't even think it's there anymore. Me and my buddy Josh Payton, what's up? We were in our dress blues and went to a casino. My dad invited us because he had like comp rooms or whatever. I'd never been to a casino. So we show up in our dress blues, medals like looking fly. And I told my buddies, hey, go grab that table. I'm going to go get us 2 beers. I turn around, grab the 2 beers. By the time I turned around and looked at the table's full of shots and drinks. And he's just there with his hands up. And he's like, they just kept bringing me stuff. Like people were thanking me for our service. And I was like, well, drink this because I paid for it. And then we'll drink the rest of the table. And I lost track of time. I didn't pay for a single drink except for the initial 2 because the waitress is there. As long as you're gambling, they're bringing you drinks. And the more you drink, the more you gamble because you want to keep drinking, but you don't want to go to the bar and order it like some common peasant,
Yeah.
And there's no windows. There's no clock.
No, it's like you said, they purposely make it so it's a loss of time.
Yeah, you don't know how fast time goes by. By the time I went outside, the sun was up. And now I'm still in my dress blues. I'm looking for a cab. There's women of the evening on the corner, whistling at me. I felt like a hot girl at a construction site. And they're like, "Can we help you?" I was like, "No, I'm just looking for a ride." And they're like, "We can help you." I was like, "That's not the ride I'm looking for. I'm looking for a taxi." I was like, "Thank you, ladies, but I'm just gonna call it a night," And it's just how readily available it is, and how easily it's dismissed until it's a problem. And sadly, once it becomes a problem, it's a big problem to get out of.
It's hard.
And it leads to many other things. How many people have we lost because of alcohol? I don't know statistics, but I'd say majority of the people who took their life were on alcohol.
Right.
Whether they got drunk and decided to go for a drive and they knew they had no business being on the damn, in my case, a motorcycle, a vehicle, a car, a truck. Had no business being on there. Or they get drunk and that's when the thoughts come and, the whispers start coming in from the dark part of your brain.
That time I told you about the last time I drank and drove,
Mm-hmm.
that was with a GSA. Government contracted vehicle.
Yeah. It's wild, and it's just one of those. I couldn't tell you how many times I made it back through the gates of Camp Lejeune drunk. I just played it cool. I'm sure some of the gate guards knew I had no business. Matter of fact, there was one occasion, and I'm going to throw his name out there because he's not in the Marine Corps anymore. His name was Lance Corporal Brock. And I had just left Toby's Strip Club, Jacksonville. They're still there. Quite a show at Toby's. And I was driving. I lived on base. This was during my separation, so I had an empty house. Drove back on base, and I'm there playing it cool, not hammered but drunk. Gave the ID, and he could smell it. And he comes up. He goes, "Corporal Ortiz." And I looked. I was like, "Shit." He goes, "You good?" And I looked. I was like, "What's up? What's up, Brock?" He's like, "Nothing." His last name's Towers. His first name was Brock. I threw his whole name out there. Brock Towers, what's up? And he's like, "You good?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm good." He's like, "Well, you're lucky you came to my gate." He's like, "'Cause I can smell it." He goes, "How far in base housing do you live?" He's like, "Drive straight," and give me back my ID and wave me through. I would have been screwed royally. But the only reason I went out drinking was because I was depressed. And the more I drank, the more I thought I wasn't depressed until I drank so much that the depression kicked in.
Yeah.
I was still out. I was still outside partying. And I couldn't tell you anything about that evening other than it was at a strip club, because that's all there is in Jacksonville, North Carolina, strip club and tattoo shops. And
That's where I did my fucking reclass.
Jacksonville, North Carolina?
Yeah.
No kidding. Camp Johnson? Do you remember?
Bragg.
Oh, no, you were down in...
Oh, not Jacksonville.
You were Fayetteville.
Fayetteville.
Yeah.
That's
That's basically the Army's Camp Lejeune. It's the same place, different branch.
yeah, like if you want a good place to go get stabbed.
Fayetteville.
Yeah.
I know a buddy that got stabbed in Fayetteville. Yeah, he went down there to party, and boy, did he party. He got stabbed right in the leg.
Yeah, I've never seen a blacklist so long in my life.
Oh, yeah. It's like, hear ye, this is where you will not be going.
Yeah, it's like, I can't go to Walmart?
Yeah. I can't get a haircut. I'm going to get shot like some kind of mafioso in like 1950s New York. But yeah, it's crazy how society and culture accepts something until you reach that line.
No, you get him?
Oh, I almost got him. Damn it. Until you reach that line of, I'm just going out to have a few drinks and party. And then you're in that of like, dude, you got a problem. Like, really? Because I didn't have a problem last night when you were buying me drinks and we were partying, and I got all these girls to come to the table.
The hypocriticism.
Yep. It's insane.
And then defensive actions
I
take
couldn't
place.
tell you how many times. So I'm not going to name names because I know these guys are still in and they're higher ranking and listed. But my last deployment, we were in Sigonella, Italy. It's in Sicily. And we were part of the Special Purpose MAGTAF, Marine Air Ground Task Force. And the bar was around the corner from the barracks, the base bar. And we'd go out there, and I was a kind of in the realm of a platoon sergeant, though I was a regular sergeant. That's a staff sergeant billet. And me and the boys would go out there, and our pregame was a bottle of wine and a six-pack apiece. The PX was right there next to it was the barracks, the PX, and the bar. So the bar didn't open until 8 o'clock. What are we going to do from 4:30 to 8? We'll drink. So we went there. It's in the quad, open where everybody can see. It's nothing but cans and bottles. No one said shit. And we'd go to the bar. I'd stumble into the bar already. And we'd keep drinking. Fights would break out daily between Marine and Navy. Between the Marines and the sailors. Yeah. And, the same staff NCOs that are at the bar hammered with us with NJP guys for showing up to formation drunk. Now it's a problem. But staff sergeant, gunny, first sergeant, I'd buy you a beer. We had shots together. Now you're going to try and hem me up?
Yeah.
Successfully. Now the kid can't go hang out at the bar. So what's he's going to sit in his barracks room all day and eat Cheetos and play video games. And then you're going to put him on BCP, the body composition program for the Marine Corps, because now he's fat. Well, he's depressed. He has no purpose in that deployment now because you've shunned him. And now he's in trouble. So he can't even go to the gym after hours because he has to stay in the barracks.
It's only going to get worse.
Yeah. He needs a chaperone to go work out. You know, it's like I said, it's hypocritical.
Yeah.
It's insane.
And it takes away humanity, really.
Yeah.
You no longer feel like a human.
No.
And military's already good at making you feel that way.
And then he couldn't even close his curtains to his barracks windows unless he was going to sleep. Like at 10 o'clock, he can close his curtains. So now he looks like some damn gorilla on display at the zoo when you're walking down the catwalk and his windows are wide open, you know, because you got to make sure he's not drinking in the barracks room. So he's just on display for all to see and shun him. And you knew who they were because they were the only assholes with the windows open.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, my goodness. But, yeah, I mean, being in the military is, we all know it's not an easy thing physically. You know, we ask a lot of an individual physically, but, you know, what still to this day doesn't get, it's awareness is how much we have to deal with emotionally and mentally and how they are failing them.
Yeah.
In all aspects.
And it's not even a matter of like trying to say the military is the worst thing on earth. It's not that at all.
It's necessary.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, have open conversation. Have talk. Like, stop being so extreme. That's like been the biggest thing of mine. Stop making everything extreme. Stop going from here to here.
Talk to them like they're human beings. Not like they're, you know, for lack of a better word, not like they're soldiers. Not like they're Marines. Not like they're sailors. You know? Talk to them like they're human beings. And they might actually open up.
In the state of New Hampshire, we had, I don't know who it is now. He just got promoted to colonel, so he left his position. But Major Townsend, shout out to him, like one of the best psych guys for behavioral mental health the state of New Hampshire National Guard ever had. At no point in time did he ever talk to you like you were a soldier.
Mm.
Like, yes, obviously we had soldier conversation, but he definitely, like, fucking, I didn't know how to set up my VA health. He had no business needing to help me set up my VA health, but he did.
And that's something that transition, that separations class that we all take, they don't teach you none of that. They teach you at least when I went through it in 2019, they taught me enough to get my name on the dotted line.
Yeah.
I didn't know who to go to. I mean, luckily I knew people who could point me in the direction. But, you know, these poor kids don't have those connections. They might be lucky enough to get that staff NCO who gives a shit, you know? But now you're going to set a kid out, you know, back into the wilderness after being with the animals. Now you're going to send, he went from being a child, for lack of a better word, 18 years old, living with his mom. You're sending him to the jungle and telling him become Tarzan. And now you're taking Tarzan and telling him to go back into society and be Joe, you know, whatever the fuck his name is.
Yeah.
Now, but you're not giving him any guidance. You taught him how to be Tarzan. But now, you know, sending him out there. It's like putting a chihuahua out there, telling him to be a wolf.
I got lucky when I recognized that I was no longer going to be able to serve. I was like, this ankle is for the rest of my life. I'm like, I have to start my paperwork now. Luckily, I started my paperwork while I was still in, because when I destroyed my ankle in the Guard, it's different. You get hurt. It's called NCAP. You've probably never heard of it. NCAP is if you were to get hurt on duty and it affects your civilian occupation and you can't work, the National Guard will pay you whatever your civilian income is while you're in recovery.
Okay, kind of covering that gap, covering a gap of you can't work. You're no good to either side, but you're still gonna get paid until you get better.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
like, the military paid me for getting hurt, and then had the surgery, went through, got off NCAP early, had to go do more bullshit COVID missions.
Mm.
But then as soon as I realized, shit, this didn't work. I'm like, I cannot do another 10 years at this point.
Mm.
I
Talk
was like,
about this didn't work, like your ankle surgery and stuff like
yeah,
that?
like it worked. I want to talk about it a little bit earlier, but I'm not going to go into great detail. But I screwed it up, had the surgery. Surgery would have been perfect for a civilian.
Okay.
I wanted to go right back to go try out to go to Ranger School.
As most hard motherfuckers want to.
Yeah. And that was one of the things I was going to say, which probably really did fail my marriage if I were to talk about it. This part's 100% my fault because how you said you put military over family. She just got, I remember crying in the shower because nothing makes you feel less of a man than needing your wife to shower you because you can't shower yourself.
Oh, yeah. I was like I said, when I tore those ligaments in my knee, I couldn't shower. Had to have my leg out of the tub, till everything healed up. So I had to have someone help me. At that point, I was divorced for the second time. I had my dad. So my dad has to hoist his 32-year-old naked son out of the fucking tub.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is insane.
Yeah, all pride is destroyed.
Gone.
But what I'm getting at is I got hurt trying to go to the ranger going through the ranger assessment. She's taking care of me. What do I do to pay her back? I'm going right back to that ranger assessment.
Mm.
I know for a fact I have to have extreme ownership on that one because she did all.
She was probably like, and you're going right back to the place that set you up just like this.
Yeah, 100%. I will openly admit that I definitely did her wrong. So anything, I don't talk down on her on the show at all whatsoever. But that is wrong on me. But moving forward to what I was talking about before, so that all happened. Military paid me the NCAP pay. And then when I realized surgery wasn't good for someone who was going to go through Ranger School, and I re-screwed up my ankle for training to do it, I was like, all right, I have to start filing my papers. And the VA is like, military never did anything to your ankle. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, there's no medical records that you ever got hurt. I'm like, here's the LOD. And they're like, nope. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
This is all the horror stories I've ever heard.
So this is what everybody's talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're pretty fucking alone when you're going through it.
Because it's all about you. No one can, at that point, when dealing with the VA, no one can deal with your issues but you. I've got buddies now that have been out quite some time, and they're now looking to either file or up their percentage because they're realizing how messed up they are, and years have gone by.
Good luck.
That's exactly what I told my buddy. My buddy called me. He's like, hey, man, remember this, that? And I was like, yeah, why, what's up? He goes, well, I'm trying to file, my VA disability claim. And I told him, I was like, dude, you got out 4 years before I did, and I'm out 2 years already. And you're asking me about dates and times. And I was like, you're not going to get shit, dude. I was like, good luck. I was like, I'll help you every bit I can, but good fucking luck. Good luck getting anybody to help you at that. Because if you didn't keep any paperwork or none of that, I think some people just realize, shit, I'm about to be in a financial hardship. I need to get my VA stuff in order, see if I can collect more money. It seems like easy, free money. You paid a price for that money.
Yeah.
And the longer you wait, the less likely you are to get it.
It's like I actually just got more denials yesterday. So like I never had a stomach problem a day in my life. But then I was on fucking painkillers for years. And now suddenly I have GARP. And I go through all the medical and whatnot. And still, they're like, nope, not service connected. I'm like, I never had a fucking stomach problem a day in my life. I'm on painkillers all this time. Yeah. Suddenly I have GARP. And you're denying it?
Yeah. Same thing for me. Like, one of my medications was for severe acid reflux. I think it was called famotidine or some shit. And, come to find out, man is not meant to live on MREs for 9 months at a time, for years on end. And also my heavy drinking wasn't helping my situation either. So doing that, I was like, well, shit, I'm not taking this pill because I would feel like shit. My digestion was jacked up. And of course, I was still drinking while taking this stupid-ass medication like an idiot. And it's just one of those where, when I got Dr. Mark to go back to the VA and switching my doctor and my provider, he's big into health and fitness. He's an ultra-marathon runner. He ran, I think, more marathons than I have years alive. He told me, hey, just change your diet and you'll clear out most of this stuff. I think it was Hippocrates, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food, or something to that extent. And within 6 months, I was no longer pre-diabetic. My acid reflux was gone for the most part. Every now and then it'll flare up, but I know why it flares up because I had some saucy pasta or some shit. So, like, I anticipate it's happening. But I was popping antacids, like Tums and shit like that. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, pop 2 of them, go back to sleep. So, like, my whole microbiome in my gut was completely tore up. And, within 6 months, for lack of a better word, I was cured of all that bullshit. And he's like, you don't need this medication all the time. And it was at that point, that I started taking my health a lot more serious. I was always into, being in shape, but then I started taking the nutritional side of my health a lot more serious. And then I realized a lot of the ways I was thinking started to subside. The negative thoughts started to go away. I was treating my body the way I should have been treating my body. I was giving it what it needed rather than what I wanted. So, my brain was getting what it needed. I was taking the proper supplements, eating the proper food. Every now and then, yeah, have a fucking piece of cake. Every now and then, cool. Enjoy it. But when you're eating the stuff you're supposed to enjoy every day, it just becomes
abuse.
Abuse, yeah. So the inflammation was going up. I was built like I was strong, and I had joined, you had Tanya and Preston on the podcast, and they are now my nutrition and fitness coaches. I have a show coming up in April, and I look at the first picture I sent them back in May. I was 198 pounds, and I was just eating. I was a runner, so I was eating for endurance fuel, but I was also eating whatever the fuck I wanted because I went with the mental state of, I'm going to run this off anyway, so I might as well eat it, have a calzone on Tuesday, run it off Wednesday morning, no big deal.
Right.
And I looked at the pictures then, and I look at the pictures now, and I'm like, whoo, you chubby man, you. Like, what were you doing with yourself? And then I realized where my mindset was then to where it is now, and the mental clarity that came with just taking care of my body. Every now and then I have an off day, rough day of mental health, but for the most part, it's all good for now. And it's a lot to do with what you put into your body is what your body puts out.
Treat your body like a temple.
Yep. And there's a podcast. It's called The Model Health Show. It's hosted by a guy named Sean Stevenson. And he says something of, think of food not as something you want to eat, but as information for your body. Your body is going to use whatever information you give it to replicate and grow. You want to give it shit information? Go ahead, but you give it the proper information, it's going to make the proper programs.
Mm-hmm.
You see them too, don't you?
No, I'm just.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so that's another thing that a lot of people, especially in the military, there's a joke where the Marines are the healthiest unhealthy people you'll ever meet. We will get hammered and go out and run the next morning, 6-7 miles, no problem. And it's a running joke on how much you can drink and run. And I've ran and thrown up at the same time without skipping a stride.
Well, that was one of the things I was also thinking of bringing up earlier. Was I remember when I was like, fucking even 19. My goal was to always get super fucking drunk the night before the PT test, and then max the PT test.
And
it's
brag
like,
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I can do this. Why can't you?
Like, there was something I would always tell myself. I'd go out drinking, and I said, as long as I can run it in a straight line, like if I had to take off running, I can still do it. I wasn't drunk enough. I was still good. If I tried to fucking run, I would eat it 5 feet from where I was standing. I'd take 3 steps and go down. But in my mind, I was like, yeah, I can make it.
Yeah.
So, and that's another thing, just the culture of the military. It's great, but when it comes to stuff like that, like what we've spoken about, drinking and all that shit, and we've turned it into a joke to help cope with the real problem.
Yeah.
Man, I ran that PFT hammered as shit. I remember I was in sergeant's course, and we had a mess night the night before. So a mess night is like where we all get together, and it's this big tradition thing, and basically it's a big booze fest. By the end of it, everybody's hammered. We all showed up to formation the next day. The whole course, the formation looks like the ocean. We're all just swaying back and forth, and we knocked out 6 miles, no problem. The whole class. We got to the turnaround point, the director, and we circled around him, and he was like, "Damn, sergeant's course." He goes, "You guys smell like a bar." We were just sweating it out. He was there at the mess night. We're like, dude, you were there last night. Like, dude's running with puke running down his shirt. But it was like, I still finished. I didn't fall out. What's your excuse? You fell out.
I remember one of the biggest fails the military did. So we had a Christmas party one night, and then the next day we had PHA. Do you know what PHA is? Basically like the medical shit.
Okay. Yeah.
Do it
PHA,
once a year.
yes.
No one in the unit could get past blood pressure. Nobody. We were there for hours.
Crazy. Yeah, I remember there's always you guys ever do like a health and comfort? Basically, they come in, and it's more than just a barracks room check. Like a health and comfort it comes down from up high. Like somebody said something that set somebody on edge, that there's some activity going on at the barracks that shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So I remember we showed up to formation, PT gear, 6 a.m. They had everybody outside. MPs were there with dogs. They're like, "No PT today, boys. Everybody go sit under that tree." And the shit that they pulled out of that barracks, because, if you're not of age to drink, you can't have alcohol. It looked like a bar exploded in that barracks. Just the amount of alcohol. They found everything from alcohol to firearms to weapons, crossbows. There were girls walking out of the barracks because they were going to sneak out while we were running PT. Madness. Dudes got hemmed up. And,
Didn't teach them anything, though.
Nope. Not a thing. Not a thing. All they do now is hold resentment.
So I'm going to steer this conversation a little bit. Go to the very last thing I have on here. So now, today, your biggest thing is wanting to work with people, wanting to help people. On your website, it states 3J has a primary focus on educating individuals so they can take control of their life back with a sense of independence, knowing they have the resources available to them that will allow them and their loved ones to live a happy, healthy, and prosperous life. What is this life goal of service mean?
To me, it's something that I've noticed over the years, going back to, the issues that plagued this country back in 2020. That's when we really saw that we were not in control of our lives. We relied heavily on a system that was a revolving door of obtaining control of people. All the trust that we gave into the system came back to bite us in the ass. But we also had no idea how to turn it around. I say as a society, we weren't educated. We didn't know what to do. The things that they told us were healthy and good were not. A couple of examples, vegetable oil, they said was healthy because it's got vegetable in the name. That's one of the worst things you can do. It started up as an industrial lubricant after World War II. They just turned it into something that was not poisonous and edible. So just the trying to reverse the false information that we've been given so that people can go back to the way, our grandfathers and our grandparents lived. They had control of their lives. They controlled what they ate. They had gardens. They had information because that was just how civilization was up until that point, until that industrial boom, to where we put so much faith in the industry to take care of us. And at some point, that industry went from taking care to making money. How can we make money? The revolving door of the food industry telling us things were healthy to, which is a blatant lie, that they are in fact unhealthy. Now the healthcare system gets in on the fun. They're going to give us this medication that's supposed to make us healthy, but the side effect list is a mile long. So yeah, you've dealt with that one issue, but it's giving you two other issues. Like we said, the antidepressants giving you suicidal thoughts. The fuck? So my goal, and through my company, 3J Coaching, is to overall educate people. I've told people that I want to turn, one person into three. So, example, you come to me and with nutritional questions. I answer, I get you on a program, such and such. Now you've gotten the information. Now you've gotten the confidence because through the process, it's working. You're seeing the results. You're feeling better about yourself. You have a more positive outlook on life. So what do you want to do? You want to tell somebody, maybe, your cousin or your buddy, you want to educate them. So now you're no longer my client because I don't want a client for 10 years. It takes time away from me to help other people. I want someone to get the information, get the education, feel comfortable, confident. They are no longer part of my system. Frees me up to help somebody who is where that individual was in the beginning. But now, the person I was talking to in the first place has reached out to someone else, giving them the information, a friend. So now 3 people are being helped by me helping one person. The original breaks off. I reach out to another person who seeks guidance. Now the original who broke off speaks to someone else. 1 turns to 3. 3 turns to, 9? I don't know, math.
Yeah.
It
started with just you.
It started with just me speaking to Dr. Mark, realizing that medication was not what I needed. What I needed was education. I thought I knew it. All I knew was how to lift heavy shit and put it back down. I was in the concept of calories in, calories out. It's a numbers game. It's a quality game, instead of a quantity. And that's my biggest thing, is to give people confidence to take their life and control of their life and their children and the people in their families back for a sense of independence. Because once you feel like you have control of yourself, the sense of calmness that enters is insane. That's exactly what I felt. I went from a list of prescription medication to the list was cut in half, that I don't need to take anymore. And now I've got education, and I know, and I have a better connection with my body mentally and physically. I know now when I'm feeling off, I can be like, all right, when did I start feeling this? What was going on? What did I put in my body?
Or what didn't you put
Or
in your body?
what didn't I put? What is my body lacking? If I'm in the gym and I start working out and I get a headache, I'm like, shit, electrolytes. I need sodium, potassium, magnesium. That's why I have a headache. Then I think, when's the last time I took this? And I was like, okay, that's what it is.
Well, it's like what I told you earlier off camera, how I lean heavily on healthy fats for cognitive thinking.
Exactly.
It's the exact same thing. If I don't have that avocado and a couple eggs in the morning, man, I cannot.
I eat eggs every day. At a minimum, I have 2 or 3 eggs a day.
Yeah.
And it's one of those, the word fat is the biggest thing that we were told was bad for us. Fats. Go back 10 years. Don't eat that. That's fat. Get this low fat milk. Get this low sodium soy sauce, whatever. I only say because I have low sodium soy sauce in the cabinet that I threw out the other day, but then you don't realize, you need the sodium, you need the fats. Your brain is somewhere in the realm, maybe over 80% fat. If you don't have enough fat in your body, your brain's not getting what it needs to fire off properly.
And I think the other thing is going back to the whole social norms of putting fucking alcohol out on television shows, on commercials, this and that. People only talk about fat as fat. No one talks about trans fat. No one talks about saturated fat. Salt. No one talks about iodized salt.
Yeah.
Most people are like, oh, look at this. I got Himalayan salt. This is the greatest thing for me. You look at it. There's no iodine in it. I was like,
salt is salt. Fat is fat. Protein is protein. Carbs are carbs.
But no, they don't know this.
They don't know the difference. They don't know. They're not educated. And that's my thing. That's what I want to push more than anything. So I work, so my full-time job, I work in the culinary industry. A buddy of mine's a chef, so he brought me on his team, so I'm helping him out there. But then I also am a personal trainer with a gym, Anytime Fitness, out in Berryville. So I've done a workshop with them. I'm big on educating the clients that come through just through normal conversation. Like, we're just talking, shooting the shit in between workout sessions or whatever, and just at that point realizing what it is people don't actually know. And a lot of the stuff that is still kind of floating around as fact that people are taking as true, that is incorrect. There's a lady, Miss Reba. She's awesome. She's been going to that gym for 6 months. Her first time in the gym, she had to stop halfway up the flight of stairs. She couldn't make it up the stairs. She had to stop, take a breather, continue working. Fast forward 6 months. She's now holding, 40-second planks. I don't know her age, but she's no spring chicken. She's holding 40-second planks for 4 rounds on top of 5 other stationary exercises before she gets back to that plank. And even she says, she goes, I couldn't do it without you guys. And, I tell her, I said, I haven't been there the whole 6 months, but from the time that I've been there, I've seen drastic changes, not just in her physical, but in her spirit. In the beginning, she wasn't as vocal to communicate because she was just so damn tired.
She was so damn tired, and she was also being the lone wolf.
Yep. And I asked her at one point, I said, Ms. Reba, what made you come here? I was like, what made you want to finally come to the gym? She said, I was tired of being tired. And this is a woman, like I said, I don't know her age, but she's past the age of retirement. And if she's not, I apologize, Miss Reba, but she's up there in age. And she said, I'm just tired of being tired. I didn't want to hurt anymore. I didn't want to have to struggle more so than I should be. She goes, and that was it. She goes, I didn't do it for anybody but myself. I was talking to her yesterday. Come to find out her husband was a previous marathon runner. Like, he had run marathons crazy, and I didn't know this. And she was like, I just wanted to get my life back. She just wanted to get control of her life. She didn't want to rely on anybody to get her groceries. She didn't want to rely on anybody to get her stuff. Like, my grandmother's 84 years old, and she's in better shape than people who could be her children. and my grandmother still does her grocery shopping. You know, we have a house aide that comes to the house and, you know, cooks for her and stuff. Not because my grandma can't cook, it's just easier for her that way. And through her health care insurance, it's afforded to her. But she still goes to the grocery store with the home aide, walks around the grocery store, picks out what she wants, puts it in the cart, pays for it, you know, does her own thing. If the weather's too cold, if the weather's not right, my grandma will walk up and down the hallway for 15 minutes so she gets her steps in. If not, she'll go downstairs, you know, hang out with the other ladies in the building, get her steps in. She'll go outside. When I'm there, she loves it because we go everywhere. I put her in the truck and we'll go towards the waterfront, and she'll walk and see all of, you know, Midtown, downtown Manhattan on the other side of the river. You know, and just seeing people like that still want control of that, because it's easy for someone, you know, in the golden years of their life to say, I'm not doing that shit. You know, my time has since left me.
I think it's the easiest way of saying it is she wants to keep living.
Exactly. You know, and a big issue we have now through the healthcare system is, yes, we are living longer. You know, as a society, we're living well into our 90s. But what is the quality of living? You know, are we living longer or are we dying slower? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know, yeah, you may live to be 90, but you stopped enjoying life at 75. You know, now you're on this medication. You know, we've seen rates of things like Alzheimer's skyrocket. You know, depression in older people skyrocketing because they, you know, what is the quality of life? Me personally, I would want to live a shorter life, happy. I would want my death to come overnight.
Facts. Not to throw the government out there, but do you actually know the number one cause of Alzheimer's?
I feel like I should know this. I feel like I've heard it.
It's the moment they took fats out of people's diets.
Makes complete sense because your brain's not firing.
Back in the 40s when they originally took it out, started saying how bad fats were. That's when it all started. Back in the day when men used to go out, kill a deer, kill a buffalo, whatever, they used every single little piece of that.
Oh, yeah, there was no
animal.
wasting. They couldn't afford to waste it.
They couldn't afford to waste it, but no one had Alzheimer's.
You're talking about tallow.
Yeah.
That's what I do now. I've been doing it for about 2 years. So even my company now, so I have two businesses, 3J Coaching and then the Hustle and Grow, which is a men's beard product and grooming. You know, we got stuff for beard oils. We've got sugar scrubs for the guys and the girls. And then we just released in December at the Christmas market over at Devil's Due Distillery a tallow balm. So it's a lotion, but you're actually, instead of getting that synthetic stuff you get from, you know, P&G, you know, Johnson & Johnson and oil of Olay or whatever, you look at that ingredient list, it's a mile long of shit I can't pronounce. That's what lotion was back in the day. It was rendered down tallow mixed with some type of oil and a fragrance, if you wanted the fragrance. You just rendered it down, purified it, mixed it. You know, I whip it with a hand mix. You can whip it with a mixer, get it nice and fluffy, and you put it on your skin. And not only is it, you know, moisturizing your skin, but your skin is porous. It's absorbing the fats, the vitamins, the minerals, the nutrients directly through the skin. You know, now I cook with tallow. I get my beef from a local farm, Shenstone Farms, and they give me the tallow. I render it down myself. I got the crock pot firing for like 26 hours. And then I put it in a mason jar, seal it, and I store it. I had tallow for a whole year. I used the last tallow jar just before its anniversary.
Did you see a major side effect once you started using it on a regular basis?
Side effect, no. Benefit, yes.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I did see a benefit. One, made the food taste better.
Oh,
for
100,
sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I wasn't smoking out of my kitchen either with this vegetable oil that was just engulfing the whole kitchen in smoke and this, you know, this rancid smell. Um, and you know, that's when I started more my nutrition journey, and I saw my cognition start to pick up a bit, and I wasn't as foggy headed. I noticed certain dermatological issues like excessive dry skin, cracking. I've had people that have bought my product talk about how their eczema is being easier to deal with. It's less of a flare up. I just had a buddy, literally, I can show you the text message about 2 hours before I got here, asking me if my product or tallow balm in general would help with rosacea.
What's that?
It's so you see certain people, it's like an irritation of the skin where it's very pink. It can be very, kind of looks like Santa Claus cheeks.
Yeah.
But they can have that anywhere. It can be very irritating. It can crack. It can bleed. So sometimes they'll give you some type of steroid cream to put on that. Whereas a prolonged use of a steroid cream has a whole bunch of problems because it's absorbing through your skin. It's going directly into your body, your bloodstream, all that fun stuff. So the tallow balm actually, because of the vitamins, the minerals, the nutrients, helps rebuild the skin, helps repair damaged skin, the same way that a lot of the steroid moisturizer does, except it's natural. It's the way I do it. All I do is I render down the tallow, strain it, get all the impurities out, mix it with a carrier oil. In my case, I use sweet almond oil, and I'll put a fragrance, a lavender, or, people have used it in replacement for a diaper cream. You can purify it even more so. There's certain steps you can do to keep it natural, and then you don't put any fragrance in it because it's going on a baby's area.
Yeah.
And it helps with diaper rash and stuff like that. And you just notice how it's always been there. But also, like you had said, back in the 1940s is when they took all that stuff out, and that's when we started seeing things like Alzheimer's leading up to a slew of other things, but also, the health insurance industry and the healthcare industry and pharmaceutical company, they're all benefiting from all this. So they're not going to educate you. They don't want you to get better. They are a reactive business, not a proactive business. For lack of a better term, they are legitimate drug dealers. Legally. No, a drug dealer is not going to give you a drug that's going to kill you the first time you do it, because they're not going to get more money out of you. Whereas the pharmaceutical industry is not going to give you a product that's going to cure you, because they're not going to get their money out. Well, and then the insurance is going to be way up because they're like, we're not getting paid, so we're not going to pay you.
Well, here's the other thing, going back to antidepressants. No one tells you it's the most addictive drug on earth.
Oh, I could imagine. Like I said, I've never been on it. They tried to, and I gracefully bowed down.
They don't tell you what happens when you try to get off. So in my case, I was on for 2 years. Holy shit. It's not a matter of like you get the itches or like, oh, I need to go take. No, like when you're getting off that shit, them suicidal thoughts.
Did they try to wean you down, or did you try to go cold turkey?
You got to wean down. If you go cold turkey, you're not going to make it.
You're not going to make it. It's one of those. It's like alcohol, like full-blown alcoholics. You can't just stop them. I lost an uncle, a great uncle, way back when, to alcohol, because he so much, the liver shut down. And as soon as he stopped, it was done. As soon as he stopped, the liver shut down completely, broke down everything. And it's just one of those where, sadly, individuals that get to that point, it's what's keeping them alive.
Yeah.
As much as they want to kick it, it's the only thing keeping them from dying.
It's like having a car at 200,000 miles that never had its transmission fluid rinsed out.
Yeah.
Don't rinse it out.
Leave it.
Yeah.
The second you do it, that car's going to complete shit. You're done. You're going to need a new one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my primary focus for my 3J coaching is education. I don't care if I make a fucking dollar. If I help people get their life back, that's what I do it for. I don't care if I make money. Money's nice. Don't get me wrong. Money is cool. But if I was making money and not helping people, I wouldn't be able to look at myself in the mirror.
Well, it's a matter of active service.
Yeah.
It's the same way with this.
Yeah.
I may not see a fucking penny for ever.
Mm-hmm.
Either ever, 3 years, 6 years. But if I help someone.
You got that comment. Thank you.
Yeah.
I kept it going.
Yeah. It makes a world of difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk about this probably too much on here, but like they don't teach you that. They teach you need to go to high school. You need to quickly at the age of 16 decide what you're going to do for the rest of your life. Yep. You need to go to college, get all this debt, make money, make babies, move out of your parents' house so more people are paying taxes, either on property taxes and income taxes and difference in sales taxes. They don't teach you the joy of service.
Nope. They'll have an 18-year-old kid fresh out of high school. They'll let you take out a college loan that you cannot get rid of in your life. Even if you file bankruptcy, you can take out a college loan of $200,000 at the age of 18 for an education in fucking art history, And the majority of people after college get a job that has nothing to do with what they just studied, But then you tell that kid, no, we can't give you a mortgage, but you can rent. We can't give you a mortgage where your payment is going to be, I'm throwing a number out there, $1,200 a month because your credit score isn't high enough and we're not trusting you for that. Or we won't give you a car. You got to co-sign with somebody, but we'll let you take out $250,000 or more and we'll give you a credit card at 18% interest.
And not teach you a fucking
and not
dime.
Teach you anything because they're banking on that kid to go to college, get that debt, get that credit card, screw up that credit card, use it buying shit that's, ordering pizza with their boys. And now they're in college. They got a part-time job at, a fast food joint, but they can't pay it back. So it's just going to accrue interest. And now the kid gets out of college and they have all this debt. I have friends of mine who are doctors that they're like, I'm not going to be able to pay this off. Their college debt was more than the house that they have a mortgage now. So essentially you have two mortgages. So you can't pay that off enough. It's accruing interest. Your credit card's accruing interest. Your vehicle, value is depreciating faster than the mileage you're putting on it. And now you're depressed. And now you're depressed because you're not making enough money to pay this off. Your girlfriend's hounding you. Why haven't you proposed? I can't fucking afford a ring. But at the same time, you're like, if we get married, your debt's our individual debt's now our debt. We can't bring a child into this world. I can't afford a child. Oh, whoops. Hey, I'm pregnant. Oh, shit. No, then this is more just stuff piling up, and you have not been given any education on this. No financial education whatsoever. Same thing in the military. A kid will go to a car dealership. I had a Lance Corporal come back with a Dodge Charger at a 22% interest rate. My staff sergeant almost self-detonated in his chair because no one went with this kid to get it. He got it over the weekend. He just got to the unit. No one educated him on this. He was 18 years old. He knew nothing of interest rates. He knew nothing of finance, knew nothing of financial anything. But then in the same platoon as a 28-year-old dude, he had his own business. He was driving a shit kicker car, but he was living in a nice house. He had his finances in order. He was educated because he came in a little later. He went to college. He was like me. He went to college. He was financially smart because he was told by his family. He was brought up different. We're also a product of our environment. And it's just one of those, all that shit starts turning into depression, going back to the relationship. Now your girlfriend's pregnant. You're about to have a baby. Now you got to have this baby. Luckily, both my kids were born while I was active duty. So I didn't see a medical bill for delivery, but I'm sure it's up there.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure it's like $2,000 just to get an ambulance to show up at your house. Whether they take you away or not, you still got to pay for it. So now you have a child and all the expenses that come with the child on top of everything else you had before the child. And now you're like, I'm not only am I the man of the house, I'm now the father. My problems don't matter now because I have to take care of this baby. I have to take care of this woman, the mother. I have to take care of this house. I got to do what I do to make sure that this house stays ours. Or if you're renting, that you can afford to pay the rent. You know? And then that goes into the depression. And what do you do to deal with this depression? At the end of the day, dad picks up a 6-pack on the way home, sits on the couch, just wants to have a beer. And in the beginning, it's not a problem. And this is all shit I've done. I didn't have a house and all the more, but, you know, the stresses that come with not feeling enough, like you're enough. So you have a beer with dinner. Then you have a beer watching TV. Have another beer before bed. Go to bed. It fucks up your sleep cycle. So you think, if I have a drink, I'm going to sleep like a baby. Not really. You'll sleep, but your quality of sleep is shit.
Yeah, I've always had a sleeping problem. To this day, I have a massive sleeping problem. I'm going to really have a hard time with the VA trying to connect them
sleep
dots.
Studies and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, but I could not go to sleep without alcohol.
I was there. But then you wake up and you feel like shit, you know?
Yeah.
You wake up and you feel like shit, but as the man, you don't have time to complain about it.
No.
Because you got to get up, you got to go to work.
And
You got to get up, the kids got to get ready for school, you got to do this, the wife's got to get ready for work. You know, you got to make sure food is done. You got to do the yard work. You've got to shovel the driveway. You've got to go get the groceries. You got to do all this shit. And at a certain point, something within you goes boom.
Yeah. Or drinking just expands to other places.
It
you
expands.
talk about, yeah, I mean, that drinking that beer at the dinner table, that might start opening it as soon as you get home.
Mm-hmm.
6
That
months
might start on a roadie leaving the store on the way home.
Yeah, that's what I was about to lead with. And then next thing you know, you actually have a free weekend. You have all these chores to do, and you're like, fuck it. I'm going to drink all day while doing these chores.
Yep, I'm gonna go cut the grass, but I got a can of beer on the John Deere tractor, and I'm just gonna have a 6-pack while I'm cutting the grass. Next thing you know, you're out there in the sun, your brain is fried, you're drunker than shit, and it's 11 o'clock.
And you just pissed off your wife because you're drunk.
Yep, because you're drunk, and the kids got a birthday party they got to go to. So now you got to go to the neighbor's house drunk as shit after arguing with your wife. And that's the spiral that so many people are living now.
And I really hate to say this next part, but like, depending on the birthday party, that kid's father might be in the same boat. And instead of you fixing your problems, now you're just with another drunk.
Yeah.
Who you're like, yeah, my life's shit. Yeah, my life's shit. You want to drink? Yeah, let's
beer?
fucking drink.
Yeah, let's go downstairs, grab a drink. Go get a glass. We'll fill it up. Don't tell my wife, though. We're just going to have some down here.
Yeah.
Now you've got then it turns into something cool because now you're feeling rebellious because you're hiding it from the wives. You and this dude are shooting the shit, talking about all the other stuff that no one knows about. And then it becomes like the military. Then it becomes cool. It becomes, an our thing. We're going to have some drinks down there. We're going to shoot the shit and we'll come back up. Where are you guys? I was just showing them around the basement, and then you just created a small societal problem that you think is cool because you got somebody else to do it with now. So now it doesn't seem as taboo because someone's doing it with you. There's a commonality. There's a bond there.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. It's crazy how this society has failed itself.
It failed itself, and I mean, you and I are openly admitting the facts that we fell right for it.
Oh, yeah.
For a long time.
Hard and easy.
It's
so
easiest.
Easy. It's the easiest thing to do.
I said it earlier. Can't tell you how many nights gas stations like half a mile down the road.
One of the key things that I did when I decided to cut back, I went on a 6-month no alcohol thing. Voluntarily for myself. Easiest thing I did was I didn't keep it in the house anymore. To this day, I don't keep it in the house anymore. Because if it's in the house, much like junk food, if there's a honey bun in the house, son, that is gone.
Oh, dude,
it's not lasting the night.
I'm the cheapest person on earth. Like, I will not spend money on crap that's bad for my body. Mm-hmm. But if it's free,
oh yeah, trick or treating with the kids, forget it. Half that pumpkin's mine, kid.
Best thing I ever made was protein Pop-Tarts.
Oh man,
Yeah,
yeah,
I allow myself once a night.
yeah. And like I said, every now and then it's all right.
Yeah.
You know, as long as you have the discipline to realize you got to put in the work to feel like you earn that or deserve that.
I also want to throw this out there too. Like, again, you don't have to go to the David Goggins. Like what I just said was a perfect example, because before, if there was like a bag of chips in the house, I can't just have a couple. I'd crush that entire bag.
Oh yeah.
But
Who the fuck eats one Oreo?
instead of instead of going cold turkey, I just replaced it with something healthier.
And that's another thing of education. Like I've also showed people there's a healthy way to snack. Like yeah, you can have your junk snacks every once in a while. We've been so ingrained to see the Pringles and the chips and stuff like that's a snack. There's healthy ways to do things also. Like you said, the protein Pop-Tarts. You know, use your phone for something else other than scrolling through TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. Like, do some good YouTube stuff, DIY stuff.
Dude, they make so many good protein powders out there and turn them into muffins.
Oh, yes. They've turned them into donuts. My weakness is donuts. And I'm not even going to lie. Like, if there's a decent Duck's Donuts for me, that is where I will die. Like, after my bodybuilding competition, I told everybody, I said, there needs to be a Duck's Donuts box open like a Zelda treasure chest when I walk up there and just start hammering on the donuts.
Every single competition I've seen Tanya do, first thing she had was like a cupcake.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, that's the thing. You get off stage after all the awards are out and you're just like, give me something that I've been lacking for the last couple of months. You know, but then you got to have the discipline to get right back on that grind and, you know, hold yourself accountable.
But be smart.
Be smart about it, yeah.
Tanya openly admitted, too, saying how she wasn't smart. She went through, like, this small hatred of the position she was in, the position that she got. And then she just went way too hard right at the very beginning. And when you're that malnourished,
yeah,
it hit her hard because she wanted to take her emotions out on the gym, which at that time was not a smart decision.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, having them guide me through this being my first ever competition, something I've always wanted to do.
Congrats.
Thank you. And the one thing they told me, they're like, you will learn from our mistakes. You know, we will teach you based on our mistakes, stuff that they did that they were like, we don't want anyone to go through this. You know, they set up my program based off of how they felt, things that they could have done better for themselves. So I'm benefiting from things that they didn't do, that they felt they didn't do properly. So, you know, I'm benefiting and they're learning from the mistakes. And that's how it should be. You need to learn from your mistakes, and the information you pass on to other people is based off of the corrective actions that you've done from your mistakes.
I think that's the hardest thing, though. And I mean, I'm taking this like on a personal stance. I have a hard time learning from other people's mistakes. I'm getting better at it. But like, I used to work for my dad, and he had 20 years of mistakes. No, I could not fucking take
We always think we know better.
Yeah.
We always think we know better.
And the younger you are, the more it's like that. And at some point, the older you get, the more you start to get to the point where you don't believe you can learn from those younger than you.
Yep.
And
because we associate age with wisdom. I know a lot of dumb old people. So
on my personal Instagram, it literally states, just a stupid podcaster trying to become smart.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's just a lot of people. We're just trying to, at least we should be trying to become better versions of ourselves. But in order to become better versions of ourselves, we have to look back and see where we're lacking and accept it. Yes. And realize this is where I'm fucking up. I want to get here, but I'm here. I need to acknowledge what I messed up here so I don't repeat it along the way. Because if you repeat it along the way, that end state is just going to keep pushing along to the right because you're never going to catch it because you're not learning.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, man, where can people find you?
you can find me on Instagram, my somewhat now business, but it's a lot of my personal stuff. 3J Coaching, the word 3, THREE, the letter J, coaching. On my Instagram, that's also the email, 3jcoaching@gmail.com. The website, 3jcoaching.com. Also, Hustle and Grow. Instagram, you'll find that on my social media also. And I'm out here right near Charlestown, West Virginia. I'm a Jersey boy that went down to North Carolina that wound up in Appalachia.
I'll make sure to have all your stuff linked below. But I like to
I
ask
appreciate
that
it, man.
because I am far from perfect and I forget stuff all the time. So if I could at least get it on
absolutely.
audio, then
Oh, yeah.
it's a backup plan.
That'll work. That'll
Cool.
work, definitely.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate you. Thank you very much, man.
Thank you for listening. For those who continued this entire time, this is the longest podcast I've done yet. Thank you for your support. Oh, and True Form.
Yeah. So shout out to True Performance Fitness. Spoke to one of the owners, Kyle. They've given us the opportunity to host it here. You guys did it here with Tanya and Preston.
Yep, this
also.
is the second time I've done it here.
Second time, so they might charge you rent for the third one. But yeah, True Performance Fitness, Kearneysville, West Virginia. Awesome gym, great people. I go here. This place is phenomenal. If you're ever in the area, anyone in the area, come check it out.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Yeah, brother. Yeah, I forgot all about that one.
I may try